Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. Joining me as always is my guy Cody Saftic. You guys can follow him at CJ Saftic on Twitter. And we are here propping you up for UFC Vegas 21, headlined by Belal Muhammad and the return of one Leon Edwards. As you guys all know, we were supposed to get Khamzat Chimaev versus Leon Edwards. This was the third time that they were booked, and the third time it's been canceled. Poor Khamzat's been going through some very tough complications with COVID-19. But luckily for us, Leon Edwards is still going out there and, trying to get his feet wet in the cage once again. It's been since July 2019, the last time we saw him when he defeated Rafael dos Anjos via decision. And now he's getting a bit of a step down in Belal Muhammad. How are you feeling about this card, Cody?
Yeah, from a betting perspective, again, it's another tough offer from the UFC. A lot of the lines have already been steamed or have been, they've been out for a long time. So they're pretty well, priced accordingly. It's a tough spot, but I like a lot of these props, to be honest with you. And I think that's a good way that we've been attacking this every week. We can get a couple good plus money props. And even if you're a little bit sketchy on who's going to win the fight, as long as you can get, is it going to go the distance? Do you think it's going to end inside the distance? That's all well and good. As far as Leon Edwards goes, by the way, it's like he's the most avoided guy in the UFC, maybe next to Chimaev. Nobody wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev, but nobody wants to fight Leon Edwards. I mean, yeah, he's fought Kamaru Usman already, but 8 straight wins since then, and nobody signs in the dotted line and fight the guy. Colby's my guy, routinely ducks him. He doesn't want to fight him. And I don't blame anybody because realistically, he's not the biggest name. He's not the biggest talker, doesn't have the biggest reputation, but the skills are all there. And I'm really excited to see him back in action. I'm also really happy that Belal Muhammad stepped it up because he's a guy that's now tenured with the UFC, been around for a long time. And to see him get a main event and, on a nice little card, like it's all good to see. But yeah, again, the money line, not the greatest. Can we attack this from a prop perspective? Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see Belal get this shine and give us a glimpse of main event Muhammad. He's been absolute gold on social media this week, and I can't wait to see what he does, in the next couple of days as well, leading up to the fight. But before we do kick everything off, I do want to remind you guys, make sure you guys hit that like, make sure you guys hit that subscribe for the Odds Crew. Definitely helps us out and definitely brings us back on a week-to-week basis. And yeah, lets the odds people know that we're doing a great job and that you guys are enjoying what we're putting out there. All right, let's just get right into the card. I don't want to waste too much time. We got 13 fights to get through. So let's start off right at the bottom. We got Jason Witt going up against Matheus Semelsberger. We got minus 120, I believe, on Semelsberger here and plus 100 on Jason Witt. Seems like the money is rolling in on Jason Witt to make this somewhat of a pick'em fight. Plus 140 is what he opened at, and now a bunch of money is rolling in on Jason Witt. And this seems like a quintessential grappler versus striker matchup, right? Semelsberger comes into that fight against Carlton Minus. Both guys strikers, but you see that Semelsberger has way more pop in his shots. And, Carlton Minus, AFC guys, say what you want about him. But still, got absolutely torched in that fight. All 3 rounds, Semelsberger was just touching him up. So he looked great in that fight. Jason Witt, on the other hand, super short notice fight against Takashi Sato, gets knocked out in less than a minute. And then he comes back against Mr. Cole Williams and pretty much puts on a grappling clinic, gets him out of there in the second round via submission. But his grappling looks good. He looks like he has a lot of top pressure, heavy pressure, and obviously out of the James Krause camp, that truly helps. Now, the way that I look at it kind of reminds me of, Matheus Semelsberger. Kind of reminds me of Donny Chavez in the aspect that they had a great debut, and it might kind of extrapolate or exaggerate how good they actually are, based on the fact that their opponent were really up to snuff. And I think that there might be some recency bias here on Semelsberger, who on the regional scene doesn't really show the greatest takedown defense, and that's really what concerns me here. Is I think that Jason Witt, if his chin can hold up and if he can take the shots to Semelsberger while closing the distance, he should be able to get this fight to the ground. I think he could lock up a submission too. So I like the spot that I'm angling with. I like the money on this as well. Witt to win by submission is plus 550. Out of his 18 wins, he has 8 wins via submission. And I just don't like what I see from Semelsberger off of his back. And this is probably the best wrestler he's fought to date. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well. How are you seeing this one?
Okay, honestly, I saw the plus 550 as well, and I thought the same thing. Like, geez, Witt's going to have much better wrestling coming out of the James Krause camp at the very least. He's going to have the good game plan. And you saw that in the Cole Williams fight. Jason Witt's been knocked out 5 times. Jason Witt's also been rocked in a lot of these fights that he's come back to win. But beyond all things, like his punch resistance isn't the greatest. So, yeah, are you going to bum rush Takashi Sato again? Like, no, lesson learned. Like, this was happening on the regional scene. It's going to happen in the UFC. So he plays to his hand. Cole Williams, doesn't really do anything well. I mean, he fanned out of the UFC pretty quickly and missed weight both times. It just gave a very general poor account of himself, right? But at least Witt fought the proper game plan. Go out there, use your wrestling, use that size, take this guy down, grind him, tire him out, bust him up with the short elbows, and then eventually gets the submission. If he goes out there and does the same thing, which he's more than capable of doing, plus 550 is live, baby. Witt does have the wrestling advantage here. We have seen Semelsberger struggle. We have seen him get taken down. And if Witt can just grind him the same way, again, Matheus Semelsberger has been submitted before. Why not? But here's my thing with Jason Witt is that, he followed this guy on the regional scene for a long time as well, is that he is chinny. He doesn't exactly take punches very well. And my issue here with Semelsberger is that even though you're right, regional scene doesn't look great, UFC debut, recency bias because Carlton Minus just doesn't do very much well. All of that aside, it's like he's 28 years old, so he's still young, but 6'2", 75-inch reach, nice, big, long frame. You see his last amateur fight was actually against William Knight at 205 pounds, right? The guy is a big dude, and now he's taking his career seriously. He's cut down to 170. He's a big, strong guy. And no doubt, you've seen the Minus fight. He lands 127 significant strikes, 2 takedowns of his own, but beyond that, output was there. Cardio was there. As you said, he had the pop on his punches. If Witt doesn't take him down, Semelsberger's live for the TKO. And so the Semelsberger by TKO prop is plus 270. Nice little prop as well. But beyond that, other side that you're going to fall on, fight doesn't go the distance. Minus 120. Now, Semelsberger, 2 pro losses, been finished both times. Witt, 6 pro losses, been finished a pile of times. So the fights, it's striker versus grappler, like you mentioned. If grappler has his way, Witt might sub him or he might, TKO him on the ground with just that heavy pressure. If he doesn't hit the ground, striker has his way, he gets that TKO. Fight doesn't go the distance, minus 120. That's a good way of attacking it. The other way that I was attacking it, and again, this is not a great price, but I didn't mind that over 1.5. It's minus 240, I believe. And the only reason I was saying that is that Witt's not rushing it anymore. You've seen the Cole Williams fight is get the takedown, grind the guy down. And with Semelsberger, it's like, yeah, he did hit Carlton Minus 126 significant times. Didn't take him out of there, but it's not a great price tag, right? I think that the fight doesn't go the distance. It ends inside at some point. That was an okay price. I'm going to go Semelsberger by TKO plus 270, but I completely saw what you were seeing with the 550 on Witt. And I don't disagree with it, but I think I'm going to go contrary and go the other way here.
There's been a ton of action coming in on the under 2.5, which opened at plus 165. Now it's all the way down to minus 105. So a lot of people are seeing violence in this fight from both guys, and I'm really much looking forward to it for sure. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Gloria de Padua making her UFC debut up against Jinh Frey, who has just been having a tough go at it in the UFC. Being forced to fight up at 115 pounds. Obviously, she was the 105-pound champion down in at Invicta. Got a couple wins there. I had some good experiences down there, but since coming to the UFC, has just fallen on hard times. She had a solid first round against Kay Hansen. I believe the live line was in her favor going into that second round. Unfortunately, she gets tapped in the third by Kay, and then the fight against Loma Lookboonmee, she just could not get her game going. And that's also an attribution to how good Loma is, right? I think that she's just been being overlooked a lot. She got beaten by Angela Hill, and a lot of people kind of started writing off Loma at that time, but she's getting better and better. She's getting stronger and stronger, and you see her in the clinch. The Jinh Frey was just not having any success there. I was talking to somebody on one of my chats that don't look too much into the Loma fight, especially in those clinch positions, because Loma was born in the clinch. Over there in Thailand, they're like Bane's born in the darkness. These fighters are born in the clinch. So don't look too much into that and how much or lack of success she had in that fight. Here about de Padua, on the surface, de Padua looks like a clean, crisp striker. She looks like she has, the super technical advantage here when it comes to the Muay Thai. But when you look at some of the losses that she has, she's only had 2 losses, both fighters in the UFC now, Isabella de Padua and Ariane Carnelosi. But the constant theme in those fights was her continuously getting pushed back, getting clinched up against the cage, getting taken down, and getting controlled. And she doesn't seem to have crazy pop on her shots that would lead me to believe that Jinh Frey is just going to be too scared to close the distance and just stay on the outside. So I think this fight is going to be a lot tougher than most people are making it out to be. From all the love that I've been seeing throughout the week on the social medias and breakdowns is that de Padua should run through this girl. She's a minus 185 favorite right now. coming up from about -150. But I think Jinh Frey is a little bit more live than most people are making it out to be. That girl is jacked. She is strong. And I feel like she can make it a difficult time for the Paula in terms of like if she's able to successfully put her up against the cage, drag this fight to the ground. If she's able to stay out of submissions. Padua seems like she has a decent guard game, but how long can she hold that up if she's getting controlled for the majority of it? So when I did my breakdown earlier this week about the fight, I kind of just bailed out and just went with the favorite here. But the more that I look at it, and the fact that I got access to that Ariane Carnelossi fight is kind of swaying me more so to the Frey side. And a lot of people want to go out there and continuously fade her just because she's 0-2 in the UFC, hasn't made a good account of herself, and is looking far from the champion that she was in Invicta. But this is a tough one. You got 7 fights with Paula. I still feel like she has a ton to prove, and I just don't feel like busting out the chalk here and playing Paula. So the spot that I'm looking at, obviously the overs I think are going to be money here. Over 2.5 is -355, so chalk city. But I'm leaning the Frey side, and I wish we got a better line here. Jinh Frey to win by decision +220. Given the fact that she's a +160 dog, I was hoping that we'd get a better line there. But I do think that Frey is very live here, and I'm going to be switching my pick from Paula. I'm going to be going to the Frey side, but I think it's still a much closer fight than the odds indicate. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, okay. So it's basically a pick'em type fight. We've got women's MMA. We've got basically it's going to be striker versus striker, and Jinh Frey is extremely polished on the feet. Her issue is that she doesn't throw shit. That's her problem. It's always been her problem. You look at her running in Invicta, it's like she has no volume. You see her go to Japan with the rematch against Ayaka Hamasaki. It's just like same thing. It's just the volume's not quite there. It's never been quite there. So now she debuts in the UFC, and quite honestly, I'm happy for her. I was happy to see her get signed to the UFC. But there's no 105-pound division. So where does she slot in? She's kind of on the tail end. She's already like 33 years old by the time she's signed on the dotted line. She comes to the UFC, and she has to take a fight at 115. And they give her Kate Hansen, and that one's a bit of a head scratcher in that Kate Hansen's like 21 years old. Extremely green. Like if there's someone that Jinh Frey can go and teach a lesson to, this is the type of fighter that it's going to be. And she goes out there. She won the first round. Didn't look great in the first round, low volume, but landed the better shots. In the second round, again, she landed the better shots. She just did not enough of it. And then in the third round, she gets submitted. But at the end of the day, she lands 26 significant strikes. Then the Luka Bume fight, again, she gets owned. And that's a tough outing, and it's all in the clinch, and she gets battered. But again, she lands the exact same amount, 26 significant strikes. One fight goes to the third round, one fight goes the distance. It's the same thing. It's low volume. So at 115 pounds, we all know it. She gets bullied in the clinch. She's not the most physically strong fighter out there, and she doesn't have good volume. Well, if there's anything that Gloria can do, it's exactly exploit her in those areas. She has better volume. She's a little bit stronger. As far as the clinch game goes, I mean, she's a shoot-to-box trained fighter. She's strong and aggressive standing. So Jinh Frey is probably going to be backing up, landing the better punches, but maybe just not landing enough of them. And then so when I looked at the tape on Gloria as well, it's like, yeah, man, ground game is there to be exploited. But I don't know, really, if you want to just look into the narrative of it, she started dating Marina Bueno Silva, right? UFC veteran. Changes her camp. Now it's like they're taking it seriously. She's been in Vegas a lot for this camp. But you see on the Contender Series against that Macias girl, right? That girl's a judo black belt, really strong in the clinch, really good little trip takedowns. And Gloria just handles it. She gets taken down twice. She's throwing up submission attempts. Grappling looks like it was much improved. And that was the wrinkle of the game, the wrinkle to her game that was missing. She wasn't a great grappler. If she shored up that grappling a little bit, yeah, she's going to well-round herself. But against Jinh Frey, geez, chances are you don't really need to be a great grappler. You just got to out-volume her, keep the fight standing, back her up. Now, I'll agree with you. Jinh Frey is way too talented to go 0-3 in the UFC and fan out. This girl's got legitimate skills. It's just like the game plan seems to not quite be there. Like the urgency doesn't quite seem to be there. Now that she's in her mid-30s, I don't see like a massive improvement. I don't see her filling out that frame. The takedown would be the path to victory, but if Gloria's shored up that grappling deficiency, which I believe that she has, or at least has been working on it a lot, then I think she just beats her on a 2-1 clip. The judges like it, looks better for them. It's more eye appealing, and she moves forward. But is this a fight I want a ton of exposure on?
Probably not.
But I agree 100%. The fight's going the distance, right?
Yeah.
But they're not giving you that like a bettable price for fight goes the distance. So because I was going to go with Gloria, then I got Gloria by decision, which is +115. It's still a plus money play, not a big plus money play. But if there's one side of it that I was going to go to, I think this thing's going to decision. Whoever you're taking, you're trying to juice it by taking it by decision. And so I would take Gloria DePaulo by decision to try to get a little plus money play on it.
The one last thing I'll bring up about this fight too, I liked what I saw from Jinh Frey in that third round against Slomo. Like right away, she shoots for a takedown. She knows she has to change the course of this fight, and she does exactly that. Now coming into this fight, she doesn't want to risk going 0-3. She doesn't want to risk going out there and losing her job. So maybe we see her just go balls to the wall, try to get this fight to the ground, try to implement her strength advantage, hopefully, and try to grind this one out. But yeah, I think it's much closer than the line is definitely indicating here. All right, let's move things along here. Speaking about women's MMA, we got a flyweight bout here between Courtney Casey and JJ Aldrich. Now, JJ Aldrich, I believe she hasn't fought since UFC 246, the same night Donald Cerrone fought Conor McGregor, and I believe it was because she broke her hand and has been sitting out for the last 14 months now. The Sabina Mazo fight, super close. A lot of people actually scored it for JJ Aldrich, myself included, and that was more so of a volume versus damage type of fight. You see the damage clearly on Sabina Mazo's face, especially after that second round. And I thought you could give those first 2 rounds easily to Aldrich. In the third round, Sabina started putting it on her, tying her up in the clinch, landing some beautiful knees, and I definitely believe she won that round. But I like what I see from JJ. I don't mind her as a play here, especially in that minus 150 range here against Courtney Casey. She has slick boxing. She has good head movement. She moves quite well, pivots well off of the combinations after she throws them. It definitely has a little bit of sting in her shots, right? Ask Macy Barber. She put her on her butt twice in that first round. Made her great account of herself, especially going into that fight as a heavy underdog. She's cashed for me big against Lauren Mueller before, and then obviously big against Poliana Vienna as a dog in that fight, managing to keep the fight on the feet for the majority of it, and now it's striking her. So I like the commitment to her strikes, because that's truly what allows her to pull herself away from most of her opponents. And then she's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu as well. So even if this fight does hit the ground, I don't think Courtney Casey's going to have a huge advantage there. Now, the Courtney Casey side, her biggest win to date has got to be Angela Hill. Super close fight, a lot of volume thrown either way, but it seemed like the judges favored the Courtney Casey side of things. And then recently she armbars Mara Romero Barella. But the Cynthia Calvillo fight, that's the one that I kind of want to hone in on here, because I feel like it has a closest similarity to how this JJ Aldrich fight could go. You got Cynthia Calvillo, 3 inches shorter than one Courtney Casey, and still going out there and outboxing her. Just, landing good combinations, getting out of the way, not really letting Courtney Casey get her shots off. And more often than not, Courtney Casey was just swinging at air in that fight. I think JJ Aldrich has a little bit more crisp of a boxing game than Cynthia Calvillo. Maybe he doesn't move as much as Calvillo, but I think just her technique alone should be able to go out there and outstrike, well, maybe not out volume Courtney here. I think the volume will be on Courtney's side, but I think the damage is going to come here from Aldrich, and we'll see like a vintage Aldrich performance. So obviously the spot that I'm going here, I don't think either woman's going to get a finish. I would look at Aldrich by decision at minus 105. You wish to get a little bit of plus money there, but I think given how clean and efficient her game is, I think she should be favored here, rightfully so. But I do also like that decision prop at minus 105. How are you liking this one?
Yeah, honestly, you just stole the words right from out of my mouth, or basically my thoughts on it. Is that initially when it opened up, I thought Courtney Casey live dog here. She's got the pressure, she's got the volume, right? I'm big on volume, especially in these women's MMA fight where if the finish is not going to materialize, then who's outworking the other opponent? With JJ Aldrich, she's another finesse striker. She's a great counterpuncher. She likes to pick the right strike. You see that in the Macy Barber fights, like she's super sharp, super technical. But in a lot of these fights as well, she's not, she might only throw 40 from land, 40, 50 significant strikes. It's waiting for that perfect shot. When Courtney Casey, she'll get in your face and she'll make it a scrap. When you look at JJ Aldrich, it's like, how did she lost her last 2 fights? Well, with Sabina Mazo, like you said, it was volume, right? She got out volume. And that ultimately was her demise and why she lost the decision. In the Macy Barber fight, she's winning the first round, but the second round, it's like Barber comes at her. It's pushing this girl backwards. It's making her uncomfortable. It's hitting her and hurting her and causing her to question herself. And coming off a broken hand and a layoff, well, that would just make you question, is she now looking to go let them hands fly, or is she going to be a little bit hesitant and wait for that perfect punch? So Courtney Casey by decision, because we're on the same page, this thing's going the distance. Courtney Casey by decision plus 220. Could she not just back her up and outland her? Certainly a possibility. So I decided, you know what, I want to retape it and go through it. And like, JJ is clean, man. She's clean. She's sharp. She's gonna be the more efficient striker. She's gonna land the better shots. And with Courtney Casey, like, yeah, she's known as cast iron. She does have a hell of a chin, but it's just not appealing to the judges to be getting hit with these big shots. Even if you're landing a couple, even if you're, bullying her a little bit in the clinch, they do remember those more eye-popping shots. So I would like to bet the fight just to go the distance, but that's not possible, right? So if you're going to pick one side of it, looking at it, JJ should land those better strikes. Courtney's live here, especially at 220. Could she make it happen? Yeah. but she's 9-8 in the She's 9-8 overall, has a losing record in the UFC, has always gives a pretty solid account of herself, but more often than not does come out on the losing side of these fights. And with JJ, she's only 27, 28 years old, trains with Rose Namajunas, trains at Elevation, good cardio, and it's a sense of confidence. Like even when you see her back in the Ultimate Fighter days, or just when she was first breaking into the UFC, it's like she wasn't super confident. She has got like a pretty crazy personal story, but now she's growing into herself. And when you see her out there in a striking style matchup, she looks confident, right? When you see her and then you try to grapple her a little bit, as you mentioned, BJJ brown belt, takedown defense, getting better. She's just growing as a fighter overall. And so with Casey, again, now 33 years old, 9-8 record. Could she win? Yes. If she does win, by decision. But I think that the move would be to take JJ Aldrich by decision. And then, like you said, minus 105, pretty much an even money play. Would likely be the preferred method here. But do I want a ton of exposure on this one? Like, no, not exactly. I want to see Wayne's as well. They're both basically 115-pound fighters fighting up at 125. So is there going to be like a size discrepancy? Is someone going to look filled out? Is someone going to look this and that? Something worth keeping an eye on. But outside of that, I mean, women's MMA, man.
I didn't even get a chance to touch on the poor takedown defense on Cortney Casey. It seems like you can just, and she'll probably fall on her back. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight because I'm strictly due to the fact that I'm a JJ Aldrich fan. I just want to see her be successful. I like her game. I like that she goes for it and mixes it up with the boxing. All right, let's move it up to the next fight. We got a short notice replacement here, and Rafa García stepping in to fight Nasrat Haqparast. You're obviously getting heavy chalk here on Nasrat, minus 380. Plus 315 on Rafa García. García, 12-0. It seems like he's coming out of that Jason Perillo gym, that RCVA gym. You see him in a couple pictures with BJ Penn, Chito Vera, Brian Ortega, Cub Swanson, Tiki Gosen, and those guys. And he's mainly been fighting for Combate. And in Combate, he's had a couple wins over former UFC guys, Estevan Paya and Humberto Bandone. And Chase Gibson, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's a
Contender
UFC
series
guy as well. Contender series guy, yeah. And then even LaRue Burley, not UFC guy, but a guy that's been making his reign. Yeah, been making his rounds on the regional scene. But when you run the tape, you completely understand why the line is as wide as it is. Like the guy's a little bit flat-footed in his approach, decent striking, but more so of a boxer than actually a full MMA game. Doesn't have the greatest takedowns, struggling to get a guy like Humberto Bandone down. Very, very sketchy in my opinion. Bandone was, didn't have the greatest takedown defense in the UFC. And then Nasrat Haqparast, we know his striking game is just another level when it comes to this stuff. Great long distance striking, great 1-2 down the middle, versatility with his strikes and his kicks. I think his takedown defense will be good enough to kind of keep this fight on the feet. And the longer that it's on the feet, I think it's worse for García here. I think Nasrat, he's going to be ready to go. Obviously, he was supposed to fight Arman Sarukian earlier this year, misses weight, doesn't get into the fight. And I'm sure he wants to go out there and right the wrong of that failed and botched weight cut. And, he's kind of getting a softball here, in my opinion, with Rafa García. Am I not giving this García guy enough respect? How do you see it?
Yeah, it's not that we're not giving him enough respect. I mean, he's 12-0. He looks like he's got a nice little finishing record, even in that last fight against Humberto Bandone. I mean, it's a 5-rounder, right? So he's showing you a little bit of everything. He's 32 years old, so this is probably the best. Sorry, he's only 26. There's a lot that you can like about him, right? He's growing. He's undefeated. He's fought 5 rounds. He's getting all that experience. It's just, that's a tough debut to come in against Nasrat Haqparast. I mean, he's. In my opinion, Haqparast is a top 15 guy. I'm a big fan of him. A guy that moved over to TriStar in Montreal and is really putting all his skills together. Again, he's another guy that just has great volume, good cardio, keeps going at it. Everyone always says he looks like Kelvin Gastelum. He doesn't fight like him. Like, he's just on you continuously, throwing, long-range guy, fights well from southpaw, rangy, good striker, ground game, obviously been working a lot. And, just he's another young guy. So him versus Drew Dober, like, I'm Team Nasrat. Oh, Haqparast is going to get it done. And him getting chin checked like that, I was like, damn, maybe he just got caught. But since then, you see him in the Alex Munoz fight. Again, I thought he looked good. He didn't look great. I got to wonder if the weight cut isn't an issue, right? Dober knocks him out in a minute. You could blame it on maybe he had a bad weight cut. Didn't look himself in that fight. Then the Alex Munoz fights, like, he gets off to a slow start. He always comes in at 156. He's always right on the money. But he's not exactly giving him much space. And you see his frame. He's not exactly the thickest guy, but he's a long guy, big guy. And then obviously, you mentioned the Arman Sarukian fight falls apart. Got to come back here. I think he's rightful favorite. Is he too big of a favorite? He's too big in the sense that we just don't know enough about Garcia. I mean, I'm going to steal my boy Paul Shaughnessy's lines. I thought it was hilarious. It's like, I don't know enough about a full Garcia, let alone a half a Garcia. And he's coming out of left field, man. I mean, realistically, he's young, he's aggressive, he's out of a good camp, like you mentioned. He's training with good guys. One would think that this is going to be striker versus striker, but again, I'm a Nasrat Haqparast guy, and I think that he just eventually breaks him down. He breaks him down with the striking, takes him out late. Nasrat inside the distance is plus 125. He doesn't show a ton of knockouts on his record. You know, you can make the argument of, dude, you're not finishing T-Bow Gowdy. You're not exactly a finisher, but you go look at that Joaquim Silva fight. It's like you just break this guy down on volume. The fight with Dober, well, I mean, Dober's a really good striker, and it didn't go his way and ended really quickly. And then the fight with Munoz is like Munoz was looking to just grind that thing down to a stall at every opportunity. So I get that a finish might not materialize there. But if you want to stand with him for 15 full minutes, you're going to get hit over 100 significant times. And with Rafa Garcia, again, it's that unknown. It's, he's got wins over UFC veteran Esteban Payan and UFC veteran Humberto Bandai and Chase Gibson, who was on the Contender Series but got blown out by Tucker Lutz, you know, and they're all, it's all good it's all good South American competition. You're built, well, Chase Gibson's American and Esteban Payan for that matter. But again, you're in Combate. Yeah, you're doing the right thing in Combate, but it's a big task now, jump from that up. So can he strike with those guys all day? Can he jump into the UFC and strike for 15 full minutes with Nasrat? Like, I'm not 100% sure. I would prefer to just use Nasrat. I want to say parlay material, but that unknown's kind of scaring me, especially the way these cards have been going week in and week out. You know, I don't know that I'd be rushing to lay that 3-1 as a parlay material kind of guy, but yeah, he's rightfully so the favorite. How does he get the win? Keeps his fight standing and just outpoints him. And as far as if Rafa Garcia is getting the better of him on the ground, standing, it's like turn the script, man. Take this guy down, bully him to the ground, like grind him a bit. He does have good ground game. He does have all those intangibles to win an MMA fight. It just depends what kind of game plan he puts together. But seeing a guy get clipped like that against Dober, maybe that is the path to victory for Garcia. And I don't know. There's just not enough information you can take off it. So I got Nasrat. The official prop play on this would be Nasrat inside the distance plus 125. But yeah, I'm going to spend up until the last minute seeing as much as I can. Obviously going to wait to see weigh-ins. How does Nasrat look? Does he look sucked in? A lot of the time he doesn't look great at weigh-ins, so I'm expecting him to not look fantastic, but you know, still show me something. And with Garcia, like, this is a big guy he's going up against. Like, is there going to be that much size? So just things to take into consideration. But the official play is going to be Nasrat Haqparast inside the distance plus 125.
Yeah, we got a 3-inch height advantage for Nasrat and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So that's something to take into consideration in this fight. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got Yahya going up against Ray Rodriguez. Most people will remember Ray Rodriguez for last time coming in on short notice against Brian Kelleher and jumping right into his finishing move, that guillotine, getting submitted within a minute of that fight. Not a good look in your first fight in the UFC. Then you start to go down this guy's record a little bit, and you see that he has a submission loss to one Chris Gutierrez. Yeah, the Chris Gutierrez that's going out there and leg kicking people to death. So a little bit sketchy of a submission loss there. I'm not trying to shit on Chris Gutierrez's ground game. I'm sure he's a great ground game. But when you're, you know, not self-proclaimed, apparently he has a black belt, Ray Rodriguez, you shouldn't be getting submitted by somebody like that, in my opinion. Now you're going up against Yahya, in my opinion, the lower weight class Damian Maia that's able to go out there and get these guys down no matter how old he is. And even that kind of surprises me. Yahya is only 35 years old. Why does he look like he's 45? I don't know, but he's still able to go out there and he has decent takedowns, from the body lock trips to, you know, double A single legs, dragging guys down up against the cage. He's able to still go out there and do that. So I find it hard to think that Ray Rodriguez is going to be able to keep this fight on the feet. I think that he gets taken down. Just look at his fight with Andy Perez, which was 2 fights ago. You're talking about a guy that was 7-12 going into that fight. You're talking about Ray Rodriguez, who was minus 1050 going into that fight. And you tell me, you watch that fight, and you tell me if he's a minus 1050 worthy fighter. A very close fight, gets taken down easily by Andy Perez a couple times. He does a good job in terms of reversing and get back to his feet, and then eventually finishing the fight in the third round. But you get taken down by Yahya in that first round, you're not getting back up. You're probably going to get tapped in that first round. And that's what I'm fully expecting here from a Yahya. Now, people might be like, oh, how can you invest money in Yahya at this juice line? Just look at Ray Rodriguez. The guy is not a UFC caliber fighter, in my opinion. I think this is a great way for Yahya to get his feet wet in the cage again. You know, coming off that loss, I believe it was actually a draw, to Enrique Barzola. And even before that, loses the fight to Ricky Simon, but goes the full 15 minutes. Even hurts Ricky Simon a couple times. And I think that's a very overlooked part of Rani Yahya's game is his striking. Apparently, he's a black belt in Muay Thai. I didn't even know that was a thing. But the guy still goes out there and has decent combinations, throws good kicks, closes distance well, and drags opponents to the ground and has a lot of success with them. There's very few fights where you see him actually not complete a takedown. Obviously, the Ricky Simon fight. Why would there's no way he's taking down Ricky Simon, but he's getting other guys down and he's submitting them. Now, here's another statistic for you. Out of his 15 wins in the UFC and WEC, only 2 of those fighters are still in the UFC. Luke Sanders and I'm trying to remember Eddie Wineland. Now, 7 losses in that same amount of time. Only 2 of those guys are still in the UFC. Joseph Benavidez and Ricky Simon. So it's his level of competition is a little bit sketchy, or he's just been around for a long time. Regardless, I still expect him to get this fight down with relative ease and submit Ray Rodriguez within that first round. And it's not just because he got submitted quickly by Brian Kelleher this past week, his last fight. It's Rani Yahya. The guy's a super high level jiu-jitsu player, has 20 plus submission victories on his record. The guy is a killer once this fight hits the ground. So the spot that I'm looking at, I think it ends quickly. So Yahya round 1 plus 225. I like that. And then even Yahya via submission plus 120. I think that's a solid spot as well too. How are you looking at this one?
Okay, so Rani Yahya. He's been literally has fought a plethora of sketchy opponents, and he always shines against the sketchy opponents. And when he takes on a couple, upper echelon guys, maybe doesn't so get it. But dude, you're reading the exact same thing as me, man, because we've been watching this guy since 2009 in the UFC. Before that, he was at WEC, so a long time. He couldn't strike to save his life. And not a great wrestler, but he just peels you to the ground, right? He'll just dive on an ankle, right? What's your play? His back's there. Maybe I'll try to take his back real quick. Nope, scramble. He's on your back. Like, he just always finds a way against these lower level guys to just get the fight to the ground. And when it does, he submits them. But his striking's awful. And then his last 2 fights in particular, my God, he has been working on his striking. But it's basically like Brian Ortega before he refined his own striking, right? It's like these guys that are so confident in their ground game that Damian Maia is the same way, and he's made a lot of improvements to his striking. They can just go throw caution to the wind. They can just bomb on. Because, what are you going to do? You're going to take them down? You're gonna shoot like a reaction takedown? You're going to try to slow down that forward pressure aggression by taking them down? Like, it just plays right into their hand. With Rani Yahya, he knows that. So he'll go out there, just kick. And eventually you come forward on him, he'll just sit on his ass. And it's just like, shit, Ryan Hall's the same thing. Well, how do you fight Ryan Hall? Like, he just kicks you from distance, and if you close the distance, he just flops over. Like, I can't go to the ground with him, nor do I want to go to the ground with him. And as far as it stays standing, he's just throwing volume. Rani Yahya is doing that. The one thing, though, is that you go back, been watching this guy for 12 years. He's 36 now. Been watching him since he's 24 years old. He's got a bad cardio. He's always had bad cardio. His cardio lets him down time and time again. He's got a minute, or he's got a first round to submit you, maybe a round and a half to submit you. And after that, he just gets extremely tired. And so the one concern with him, if there was going to be a concern here, is that he's 36 now. He's coming off a year-long absence. If he doesn't go out there and get this quick submission, he's probably going to gas and give a bad account of himself. Luckily for him, they gave him Ray Rodriguez, who approximately lasted 39 seconds against Brian Kelleher. He was, you mentioned it, submitted. Not only was he submitted by the leg kick master, Chris Gutierrez, it was submitted in the first round, And then that Perez fight, it's just like, dude, there's no way this fight should be this competitive, right? I mean, it's in the 3rd round. And beyond that, so it's like, okay, well, how is Ray going to win this fight? It's like, well, maybe he catches Rani Yahya. It's like, Rani Yahya hasn't been knocked down in 12 years. Okay, it's okay. Ray Rodriguez also 16 pro wins, 3 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. This guy likes to grapple himself. This guy likes to wear on guys, get them to the ground. He loves the arm triangle. He loves to try to get the rear naked, get the back. If he's going to put himself into a grappling match with Rani Yahya, he's screwed. If the fight stays standing, Ronnie probably is just going to have volume and hopefully peel him to the ground. The concern is if we bet Yahya, and I like the by submission as well, it's plus money. The concern is keep ready on a live bet opportunity. Because if Ray's still in it, in that second round, even if he drops the first round, if he's in it and Ronnie's going to get tired, then if it's enough to win the second round and this thing goes to a third, I would get out immediately. I hope Ronnie goes out there, the year-long layoff and already having bad cardio and 36 years old. None of that's good. But Rani knows how to win this kind of fight, and I do see him getting the victory here. So plus 120 by submission. You're chasing that first round submission. Plus 220 looks even better, right? But I don't know. He doesn't really force things sometimes. Like, he just allows the submission to come to him. But I think ultimately we're on the same side. Rani by submission.
Yeah, I was looking through the MMA decisions page for Yahya to see how many third rounds he's actually dropped, and it's quite a lot. He's only ever won one round 3, and I think it was against Michinori Tanaka. But yeah, that third round is not nice to him. I just don't think that this guy is like an Enrique Barzolo, who's very strong in the grappling exchanges and can kind of control Yahya in those spots. So I think we'll see a little bit. I think that the Yahya cardio thing is slightly overblown to the point that people think that he's just going to roll over and die in that third round. It's not going to. He's serviceable enough to at least survive, I think. And I'd be very surprised if you see a 10-8 round from Ray Rodriguez here in that third spot. But yeah, first round for me. If he gets into the second, yeah, it gets a little bit fishy for sure. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here we got Charles Jourdain, someone we know very, very well, going up against UFC newcomer Marcelo Rojo. If you guys remember, is it Rojo or Rojo? Regardless, Marcelo was supposed to come in and fight Hani Barcelos a couple of weeks ago. Barcelos, literally within 36 hours of accepting that fight, test positive for COVID, so he has to pull out. So they keep Rojo around. And the one thing that Rojo is probably most well known for is that like T-Rex post-fight MMA celebration that he did after knocking out a guy, probably one of the best celebrations of all time. But the guy, when you look at his game, decent striking, has some power, has some pop, throws some spinning stuff, is a little bit unorthodox in his approach with his strikes, but he seems to be the head hunter kind of guy. Wants to go out there and take your head off, give you a spectacular knockout so that he can go out there and do some stupid shit with his post-fight celebration. Charles Jourdain, on the other hand, seems like a guy that's just going to be forever like a heavy favorite, and I just think unjustifiably. And I love the kid. Like, I've been watching him since his Fight Quest days in Kanawaki, freaking Quebec, when he was still an amateur, right? Like, I still believe the kid has a ton of talent, but coming off that Joshua Culibao fight where he gets rocked in that first round, and for some goddamn reason, one judge actually scored that first round for him. That judge needs to get fired immediately. But having a close fight going into a fight where you're minus 400 against Joshua Culibao, who just doesn't seem like he's on your level, gives me some questions. Now, Rojo definitely seems like he has pop on his shots. If he goes in there and knocks out Charles Jourdain, I wouldn't be that surprised. Like, I'm trying to think of reasons why I should be backing Jourdain at that minus 220. Great striker, very versatile, unorthodox as well too. Likes to throw a lot of spinning stuff. He's a very flashy striker, decent jiu-jitsu. But in terms of like his ground game, it's you can definitely control him. Just as Desmond Green, he was able to go out there, take him down time and time again, and just control him for the majority of that fight. But it's almost like Alexander Hernandez knocking out Benio Dariush when Charles Jourdain knocked out Duo Choi. Now this guy's off to the moon. Everybody thinks he's just, amazing fighter, and he's a good fighter. But I just can't be backing him, higher than minus 200 nowadays. No matter if Marcelo Rojo is on his level or not. Like, there's so many question marks about him. That Joshua Culibao fight was just too big of a red flag for me to be back in Jourdain here. I think he wins, and I don't know if he finishes this fight per se. So him to win via decision is probably the way to go. But even that's probably a little bit chalky. Let me just take a look at that real quick. Jourdain by decision. Oh, plus 195. Ooh, better than I thought it would be. But again, there's so many question marks on this kid. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I think, again, with Charles Jourdain, he comes to the UFC, he's very young, and I just think he was ill-equipped, but he was the TKO double champ, and there was a little bit of hype, and they did him no favors, man. He takes a fight on short notice against Des Green, up a weight class, in Des Green's own backyard of Rochester. And yeah, we know this guy by this point. He's not exactly a great takedown guy, or doesn't have great defensive wrestling. He gets taken down quite easily. TJ Laramie put an absolute wrestling clinic on him for 4.5 rounds, and I mean, if Laramie's putting that kind of clinic on you, what do you think a D1 wrestler like Des Green's going to do to you? And then you see him going to the UFC, and that's exactly it. He does have the win over Duho Choi, which he lost the first round. In the second round, cold cock. So that's a solid victory. But beyond that, he just hasn't shown a ton. The Andre Fili fight, he's looking competitive, very competitive, against a top 15 guy, Andre Fili. Even wins the cards on one judge's tally. But it was the takedown defense. Again, Andre Fili needed a couple takedowns, and that's what secured him the victory. So, it lets him down. Now, Josh Culibao, it's like, perfect. Here's a guy that's not going to take me down. I can be freestanding. I can be creative. I can land these strikes. I can do my spinning attacks. And, he got big time hurt in the first round. Josh Culibao had him out. In the second and third round, he works his way back into it, but he's never really looking comfortable. He's never really pulling ahead. And so he's still young. He's still got some growing to do. Are we running after him to lay this kind of price? Man, maybe not. But there's a couple ways I'm looking at this fight. First and foremost, I'm looking at over 1.5 minus 175. So with Charles Jourdain, you've seen in the Josh Kulabau fight, yeah, he can take a punch. He can recover if he does get hurt. But beyond that, he's not exactly like a big power guy. He knocked out Choi clean. But beyond, like, he throws a lot of volume, right? He throws a lot of like crafty strikes, but doesn't exactly load up on everything. Does throw a lot, does make you nervous, but he will bank in some rounds. And the flip side to that in this fight against Rojo is that Rojo is, again, he likes to attack, he likes to be aggressive, but I can see it going over that 1.5. Fight starts round 3, minus 120. But hear me out on this. Let me just see what you feel, right? Because you've been watching it for a long time. Mm-hmm. But Charles Jourdain fought TKO comfortably 145. That was the weight class for him, right? Goes up to 155. He even fought like a Jesse Ronson. He's fighting the best guys. Like 55 is not the weight class for him, but he does fight at 55. Even makes a UFC debut at 55, right? Rojo's entire record, his entire career has been 135 pounds. He's fought his last fight at a catch weight of 139, but he's not a natural. He's a natural bantamweight. He's taking this fight on short notice, so he's moving up a weight class to take on Charles Jourdain. Now, when you look at his record, he's got 6 pro losses, but the last 4 of them are all by submission. And with Charles Jourdain, you're not seeing it lately. But remember back in TKO, dude did a nasty little submission game on him. Submits Alex Morgan with the guillotine choke. You see he's got a okay rear naked choke. It's just that since he's come to the UFC, he's been fighting tough guys, right? He's been taking on the Andre Fili's of the world. He's been taking on the Duho Choi's of the world. He's been striking a lot more. But coming off that Kulabau fight where it's like, damn, this guy seriously had me hurt. Coming in here against Rojo, a smaller man, also a striker, very dangerous striking. Why not take this guy down and try to submit him? And the Jourdain by submission was plus 550. So I would prefer to attack that over 1.5 and that fight to start round 3. I got a feeling this thing's getting some rounds in it. But if you're the kind of person that's chasing one of those big 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 money tags, it's like just because Jourdain hasn't been showing submissions so far in the UFC doesn't mean he doesn't have a good grappling game. And when you have that bad takedown defense, you spend a lot of time working on your grappling because you're going to be in those positions. So go back and watch him versus TJ Laramie. It's like he's throwing up submissions. It's not sticking. But he's only 22 years old at the time. He's growing into himself. Maybe that submission process being overlooked, and that plus 550 maybe worth a little sprinkle, right?
Yeah, I think the kid's very, very talented, and I think he has finishing upside, but I just need to see him go out there and actually beat a guy like Marcelo comfortably, beat a guy like Joshua Kulabau comfortably. After that, maybe I would start to give the kid a little bit more credit. But yeah, I like your angle on this fight for sure. All right, let's move on to the next one. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's going to be the second time that we've broken down this fight in the last 3 weeks. We got Angela Hill against Ashley Yoder. We pretty much already know, the whole tale on this fight. We both, I believe you as well, believe that the line is a little bit too wide here. The spot that you want to be targeting if you are backing Angela Hill is that minus 175 on her to win by decision. I don't see her finishing Yoder. I think that Yoder, again, she could make it a slow, sloppy fight by just, clinching up against the cage, trying to get the takedowns, closing the distance, not letting Hill get her shots off. And I think Yoder is kind of live. So even if you were to back Yoder plus 500-ish for her to win by decision, if you want to throw out a cheeky Yoder by sub prop, that's plus 10-15. She's black belt now compared to the purple belt that she used to be. But I don't want to completely discredit Hill here. She should win. She should be able to keep this fight on the feet for the most part. She should go out there and outstrike her. But I'm just not the most keen on even laying minus 175 on Angela Hill, who just fights super, super close in her fights. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah. I mean, we already broke it down before it got canceled. We've already seen it before. I mean, it was a close fight the last time around. Angela Hill did give up 3 takedowns, but ultimately the striking was the difference. Coming into this spot, that's what we're expecting. Ashley Yoder should be the better wrestler. She should be able to get a couple takedowns. But with Angela Hill, she pops right back up. And that's one thing I'll give to her is that even when she does give up takedowns, she generally is quick to work her way back up to her feet. And honestly, you look at the last 2 losses. They're both split decisions. They're both to world title challengers, right? Michelle Waterson went 1 for 18 on takedowns. Claudia Gadelha went 1 for 4 on takedowns. If they're not taking you down consistently, there's nothing in my mind that would lead me to believe that Ashley Yoder is going to go out there and take her down consistently. The line's too big. We've already talked about that. The money side would be Yoder. If you're betting either side, it's by decision. You would take a Yoder by decision. She's had 8 fights in the UFC. All 8 of them have gone the distance. This fight to go the distance minus 400 or something stupid. So you can't bet that angle. Whatever side you're taking by decision. But I'm going to take Hill. Just talking about the fact that she's fought Michelle Waterson and Claudia Gadelha in her last 2 fights shows you the level of competition. fighting a main event against Waterston, fighting in a 5-rounder, and they're split decisions. They're competitive. She's also fought the likes of Jessica Andrade throughout her career. She's also fought, a plethora of top contenders throughout the course of her career. And even though she's getting a little bit older herself, I think she's 36 years old now. The fact remains the same. If it's a striking battle, she'll just go out there and out-volume you. If it's the highest level of the sport, she's going to give up a few takedowns here and there and doesn't quite through. With Yoder, it's like, who has she been fighting? She beat Miranda Granger. She looked good in that fight, did she? It's like, well, what other fights? Has she beaten anybody that would be considered? The Livian Souza was like that one feather in her cap, but then you see how awful Livian Souza is, and it's like, yeah, you know what? Yoder's also 33 years old. She's fought 6 times since the Hill fight, none of which were overly meaningful. Hill's fought 11 times since the Yoder fight, a lot of which were meaningful. And when they give her those step downs, the curiosities, or would you call Loma Lukabume a step down? It's like she shines in those fights. This rematch with Yoder, it's going to be a decision. It's going to be a relatively close decision. Should be a Hill decision, which is minus 175. If you're going to bet a prop on this fight, I think that's the one you go with. But we're in agreement. Line's too big.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that we just actually get the fight so it's not rebooked again and that we have to talk about it again in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm glad that we see the fight the same way. All right, let's move on to the next one here. And it's the first fight of the main card. We got Eryk Anders going up against Darren Stewart, and we got a little bit of a reinvigorated Eryk Anders. He's now down there at Fight Ready, headed by Santino DeFranco, I believe the head coach's name is. Most people will remember him as being in the corner of one Henry Cejudo. I believe he's been in the corner of a bunch of other guys down there as well, too. If I'm not mistaken, that is the gym that formed after parting ways with MMA Lab, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fighters from MMA Lab, but most notably, you'll see like Captain Eric Albrecht's there with Henry Cejudo, and they've got the Pitbull brothers.
Yeah,
right? So,
and Eric Albacine and those guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. They got a good little camp there, and you see a lot of solid guys. I would say Fight Ready, top gym.
Yeah. So yeah, but my question here is, how much can they really do with a guy like Eryk Anders? He's a guy that kind of reminds me of a Kennedy Nzechukwu, who's might always remain green, but just get away on his strength, his power, and his ability to just overpower guys, right? I can see an instance where this fight just plays out where he just pushes Darren Stewart up against the cage for 14 or 13 minutes and just win this fight based off of control time easily. But the longer this fight stays at distance, you got to give the edge to Darren Stewart, who shows much more technical striking. Has some pop on his shots, could definitely make it difficult for Eryk Anders to close the distance, especially if he's throwing some volume out there. But that's the issue. There's not much volume from either guy here, so I don't really have too much confidence on either side. The line that did pop out to me the most, now I'm picking Darren Stewart to win this fight. I think he wins by decision, but the line that pops out to me the most in a fight that I believe is going to be super close is Eryk Anders to win this fight via decision is plus 310. That's not too shabby for a fight that I expect to be close. And if Eryk Anders is successful in pushing this fight up against the cage, getting a couple takedowns and just laying on top of him or something, that plus 310 is going to look hella nice. But I just feel like Darren Stewart's going to have him beat in those clinch positions with some striking and the elbows, the dirty boxing. I think he'll be able to kind of use that to get out of those bad positions. And then obviously at distance, you got to give Darren Stewart the advantage here with the striking. He's just a much better striker, great kicks, great combinations, has a ton of pop on his shots as well. If you remember that last fight that he had against Kevin Holland, that third round, he was absolutely putting it on Kevin Holland, ended the fight just talking shit to Kevin Holland from the top and just throwing down big shots. Didn't get to finish the fight there, ultimately ends up losing the fight. But that's a solid last image of a fighter going into his next fight that you want to see. But I do like Stewart here. I think he wins by decision. The decision on his, or the odds on his decision prop just aren't the sexiest either, right? You're getting Stewart plus 130, right? That's just not enough for me to truly get off the couch and go to the betting window to bet that. Plus 310 on Anders looks way sexier to me. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, so if you're the kind of guy that doesn't mind betting those decent size minus 200 range, but don't want to bet minus 400 range, yeah, this fight just to go the distance, minus 195, not great, not even good. But yeah, I think whoever wins this fight, it's going to be by decision. Darren Stewart seems to have better striking. He doesn't throw a ton of volume. He's a guy that doesn't have great cardio. But what he's learned to do now, multiple fights into the UFC, is conserve himself. How do I go out there and not exert my payload? And then that's most prevalent in that Kevin Holland fight. Like you mentioned, it's into the third round. At this point, he should be tired. But, I mean, he's rallying. He's getting going. And when you look at the guys that they've matched him up against, it's like they've largely gave him the same prototype of fighter, right? He goes out there and he takes Bavon Lewis on. It's like, hey, Bavon Lewis is looking to do pretty much one thing, clinch up against you, grind on you, hold you against the cage. Then the guy draws Duran win. It's like, Duran wins looking to get up on you, clinch you, take you down, grind up on you. And then they give him Fabinski, right? It's like Bartosz Fabinski only knows one way of fighting. Get up on you, clinch up to you, take you down, grind on you. So it's like that was invaluable experience in that he's had to deal with that, doesn't deal great with it, but he wins the Duran fight. You know, he same thing with the Bavon Lewis fight. Like now he's finding out ways to like, okay, this is how to do it. So if Anders comes in there with the game plan of grind this guy against the cage, he's been there. He's done that. But beyond that, like at space, he's going to have the striking advantage. He's going to have slightly better volume than Anders, who seemingly just never lets his hands go at all. And Anders just, I don't know. I mean, how much improvements could he have made? You said it best yourself. This is a guy that's had an entire career of doing the same thing, following his opponent, not throwing a ton of volume, getting hit. When he does get hit, he freezes up, deer in the headlights. You've seen the Machida fight. Kape is a headliner in Brazil against a legend. You give him a pass.
His third fight, his third UFC fight.
He's the favorite. The UFC is very clearly trying to market this guy. This guy looks like the limit for him. But the Tim Williams fight, he just stares at him for 3 rounds. He's arguably losing the fight. You know, you see the Khalil Roundtree fight. It is a life-changing beating. The Thiago Santos fight, dude actually took Thiago Santos down 3 times, you know. But it's a life-changing beating. And now you see him in there. It's like he doesn't really want to engage. Like he's not really going for it. Even the Elias Theodorou fight, I remember he hurts Elias at the end of the round and just doesn't even care to capitalize. Ends up losing a split decision, which he felt he won. I'm sure you felt you won, but you didn't do enough. So now he's at a new camp, perfect. And it's a good camp, perfect. Okay, get in there and train with Henry. It's like he's a flyweight and a bantamweight. Let's like, okay, well, who else do you got? We got Patricky Pitbull Frey. It's like he's a lightweight. What about Patricio? He's a featherweight. Like, did you? I don't know. Is that the best camp selection? Yeah. Even had he gone to the MMA lab, right? It's like, you know, we talked about it last week with Kyler Phillips and Casey Kinney and Sean O'Malley, and it's like they got a lot of these lower weight class guys. So, do I think that he's made suddenly enough improvements that he goes out there and is a different version of himself? No. But I will give Anders something. I've always thought this guy has the potential to, if he was to realize his potential, it's there. Great athlete, was a college football national champion at University of Alabama. He's got a good chin, you know, he's got good power in his hands. Unfortunately, you know, a great athlete and a great fighter are 2 different things. And so far, he's not getting any younger. He just hasn't really shown that transition. So with Stewart, you've seen the improvements. He came to the UFC not expecting to do anything. Anders was supposed to be a highly touted prospect. But what's happened is Anders is just a faded prospect now that we're not rushing to lay money on unless it's against Vinicius Moreira, let's be real. Whereas like Darren Stewart's been giving up poor matchups, bad stylistical clashes, finds a way to win. And even that Maki Pitolo fight, you see, his grappling's improving. And that's already on his striking, already on he's working on his wrestling. Like I just think he's made those better improvements. So I'm with you. I got him winning by decision, which is plus 130. At least it's a plus money play. Beyond that, I think whoever wins this fight, it's going the distance, minus 195. But, you know, they are pretty big middleweights. So it's going to be a sweat while hopefully this thing does go 3 rounds. But I think Stewart comes on the other side of it, lands the better strikes while it stays standing, and in the grappling exchanges, hopefully just holds his own. If not, ends up on top.
Given that he absolutely got grapple fucked by Bartosz Fabinski, it's interesting to note that he was close to a minus 330 favorite going into that fight against Fabinski as well, and just did not look like anything of a minus 330 favorite. All right, let's move on to the next one, and I'm excited for this one. We got Matheus Nicolau making his UFC return against Manel Kape, who wants to go out there and right the wrong last time where he fought Alexandre Pantoja and came out on the losing end. Now, the interesting thing about that fight, if you listen to everybody's breakdown going into that, they're like, the longer this fight stays on the feet, Kape's going to win this fight. What happened? That entire fight was on the feet, and Pantoja went out there and outstruck this guy. This fight barely hit the ground. The only issue is that Kape just does not have that volume. He doesn't have that pace. He just sits out there and he doesn't mind dancing and putting on a little bit of a show and doing that weird Ricardo Ramos sidekick from behind your leg. And like, I just don't understand it. Like the guy is almost a KO or bust kind of guy, or at least try to get a knockdown in a round. If you can't get a knockdown in a round, more than likely he's going to lose that round off of volume alone. Now, Matheus Nicolau, a lot of people might think that this might be a step down from the Pantoja fight. Personally, I think it's a little bit of a step up. I think Nicolau is very skilled. The guy has great boxing, high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu, a Novo Uniao guy as well. Getting knocked out by Dustin Ortiz, as your second loss ever, and then getting cut from the UFC was very unwarranted. It should have been, they should have kept him around. but that was also around the time that they started cutting the flyweights. Even Brandon Moreno got the pink slip. So, you know that they were just trying to get rid of the flyweight division at that point in time. And now they're right back in it. They're trying to get the flyweights back going. And Nicolau is definitely a great addition, who I believe is truly a top 5 guy in this division too. Great boxing, like I said, good volume as well, solid power in his shots. Just watch that Luis Smoka fight where he was just, hitting his head like a ping pong ball for the whole 15 minutes. Surprised that he wasn't able to put him out there. Even in his 2 fights after the UFC, looks great. Gets a dark choke in the first one and then goes a full 15 with the next fight, but looks good pretty much in every single second of that fight. My main concern about Kape is just his lack of volume, and I think that's just going to be his downfall unless we see him go out there and just start swinging leather and putting some volume on his guys or knocking out Nicolau. I just find it hard to believe that he's going to be able to beat Nicolau via decision or even submission. I think that Kape is a high level brown belt or black belt himself, but I think Nicolau has him beat there, and I truly think it comes down to a flash knockout here for Kape to win this fight. So the spot that I'm looking at, I will give this to Kape. He is quite durable, and I think that we'll see Nicolau edge him here, and I think he wins via decision at plus 295. That is not a bad line at all in a fight where I think that he has him covered pretty much everywhere outside of possibly some, the power. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I got to go in decision. And beyond that, I'm going to just chase the better price was over 2.5, minus 120 range. And I like that. I think that Kape, they're both flyweights, first and foremost. Kape does have the power advantage, but you see in the Pantoja phase, just not letting his hands go. And flip side to that, could he go out there and get worse by Matheus Nicolau? Like, yeah, maybe he's got the output on him. Matheus also important to note that he was at Nova União, but now he's at American Top Team. And you see his girlfriend just got signed to the UFC as well. She fought on the Contender Series, got the contract. And it just looks like, he's career best shape. Why he was cut in the first place, I couldn't tell you. I mean, dude beat John Moraga, right? Yeah. He was 3-1. He was 3-1 in the UFC, and he just lost to Dustin Ortiz, who's like a perennial contender, one of the top guys. He's still 3-1. He still shows that, a couple decent wins in the UFC. And then they say they're getting rid of the division, and he gets cut. It's a shame, but he's still young. And you've seen those improvements. He's fought twice since. But here's my dilemma here. So he hasn't fought a year and a half. And how is he going to come in and look in this fight? Well, we expect really good. But you see, that was the narrative on Kape's last time. Kape hadn't fought a year and a half. He hadn't fought since fighting, mediocre talent in Ryzen. To jump in the UFC after a year-long layoff, you're making your debut. You have that kind of layoff. And they give you Alexander Pantoja, a top 5 flyweight, a guy that went the distance with Davidson Figueiredo in a very close and competitive fight. That's not exactly an easy fight, man. And he goes out there and everyone's shitting on him that he's not letting his hands go. Yeah, he could have done more. But did he look bad? No, just didn't let his hands go. He's fast. He's dynamic. He's got good footwork. He scored 2 takedowns over Pantoja. They were too late in the rounds. Like, I don't know what. I think he was just trying to get a late takedown so that Pantoja couldn't do much with it with his ground game and then hopefully steal a card or two. But you see, it's like he's physically very, very strong. And BJJ Brown Belt, as you mentioned, spent a lot of time working on his grappling. A lot of the time, guys don't look great in their debut. And a lot of the times, it's like coming off a long layoff, guys don't look great. So if we give him the benefit of the doubt, he should look better this time around. And let's keep in mind, he just fought Alexander fucking Pantoja, a top-rated guy. So I'm going to give him a pass in that regard. He's taking a really quick turnaround in that he just fought 3 rounds with Pantoja. And it's like he understands I screwed up. The UFC paid him a lot of money. They're willing, you know what, kid? We'll throw you back in there. And now roles are reversed, right? Now he's taking on the guy with the long layoff, coming back to the UFC, all that stress, all that pressure. It's like, dude's live here. The over 2.5, because I think the same thing. If he has his way, he lands the better strikes, keeps Nicolau honest, keeps him on the outside, wins. If he gets a couple takedowns, and this is grappler versus grappler, but Kape's on top, going to win some rounds, perfect. But I wouldn't rule out Kape just catching him with something and knocking him out. Losing to Dustin Ortiz, no problem. Guy's an absolute gangster. Getting knocked out by Dustin Ortiz in the first round, kind of a bit of a problem. Now it's a head kick. Shit happens. This is MMA. But Kape does absolutely crack hard. And again, he's only 27. I really think that it was a big talent jumping from Ryzen, taking on, again, mid-range Japanese fighters to jumping into the UFC and taking on Pantoja. But debut out of the way, jitters out of the way, rewatching that fight and understanding, dude, I just got to let my hands go. If he does that, then he's prime here to go and pull one off. I didn't like a prop on either side because, again, I could see Kape knocking him out. I could see Kape winning decision. And Nicolau, originally I was on the same side as you. I was like, he'll just do more. But it's like that unknown. It's just like, how do you figure, right? And he wants to get this fight to the ground, which is going to be a difficult task against a great athlete and a strong physical guy like Kape. So I'd like that over 2.5. That's the prop I like here.
Yeah, the narrative I've kind of been overlooking this week is like it was his first UFC fight. Maybe he had some jitters, and we've seen that in the past. Like Taila Santos is one that comes to mind where she loses a fight to Mara Romero Barella and comes back out the next time and looks like an absolute world beater. So yeah, there's definitely that narrative that I believe that I've been looking over. But
Amanda Lemos,
Amanda Lemos, exactly.
What
was it Leslie Smith to freaking whatever her next fight was? But yeah, I definitely see that angle as well too. But I still like Nicolau. I think the kid's super talented. Should be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, next up we got Jonathan Martinez versus Davy Grant. This one, heavy odds on one side. We got minus 320-ish on one Jonathan Martinez and then plus 260 on Davy Grant. I'm all aboard the Jonathan Martinez train. The kid has just been making heavy improvements since we first saw him in the UFC. I mean, when you see a guy lose to Andre Sukumtat, you start to like question the guy. But when you watch his fights, from fight to fight, you see the ever improving game of this kid. Even the Andre Ewell fight, man, he definitely should have won that fight. Hurting Ewell time and time again to the body and just putting it on him. Even in that third round, Ewell apparently had some issues with his wrist or his hand or something. And, Martinez was just taking full advantage of that. Then the Frankie Saenz fight picks him apart. Again, Frankie Saenz not the greatest fighter out there, but goes out there and does what you're supposed to do. Put out a guy like Frankie Saenz, and that's what he did. And then the Thomas Almeida fight comes into that fight as a plus 120 dog and clean sweeps Thomas. Like there was nothing that Thomas could do in that fight. Now you can add that caveat that, okay, it was Almeida's first fight in 2 or 3 years. The guy had been off for a long time. Maybe he was just a little bit rusty, but he beat him in his own game, just completely outstruck him. He has weapons from, all 8 of his limbs. I love his elbows. I love his long distance striking. Even his kicks up the middle. He hurt Andre Ewell a bunch of times with that kick just straight up the middle. And I think he's just going to overload the mind here of Davy Grant with his strikes. Davy, decent striker, but not on the level of Martinez, in my opinion. I think for Davy to win this fight, he's going to have to, initiate the clinch, try to get this fight to the ground, try to lay on this guy, kind of go the Grigory Popov way, where he knew he was kind of outgunned on the feet. So he decided to go for the wrestling. He landed a bunch of takedowns in that fight and just squeaked out a split decision. But I think that we're going to see the more improvements from one Jonathan Martinez here. Just continue to pick him apart from the outside. And I am not counting it out that we could potentially see a late finish here for Jonathan Martinez after overwhelming him for about 12 minutes and getting a late stoppage. And I think that round 3 prop is like plus 1100. I love me some round 3 props, but I think the most likely outcome is going to be Martinez via decision. And that line is currently at plus 115, which I like that line too. The kid's talented. The kid looks good. I'm just not a huge believer in Davy Grant, and I'm not sure if he'll even be able to survive the full 15 minutes here against our guy Martinez. Again, plus 1100 for Martinez in round 3. I think that's a little bit juicy to me. How are you seeing this one?
Son of a bitch is on the play. Yeah, I'd like Martinez straight. Martinez just by TKO plus 245. And by third round, kind of looks good as well, considering Martinez has got 2 third-round knockouts as well. You talked about the fact that he beat Pingyu Liu. That knee right in the third round is like, ooh, nasty beautiful knockout. Yeah, but it's just like, dude's dynamic, dude's crafty, and dude's looking for that finish. And then the exact same thing, the Frankie Saenz fight. He chews Saenz up. He's way faster. He stuffs the takedowns. He gives a really good account of himself in that fight. And then in the third round, he just overwhelms him and knocks him out, again, with the knee. It's like when you have dangerous weapons like that, all 8, as you mentioned, he's going to throw knees, he's going to throw elbows, he's going to throw his kicks, his strikes. He's young, he's 26, he's getting better. He's a very fluid, flashy striker. He's just going to make sure he doesn't get taken down. Now, in the Saenz fight, that's a good barometer test because Frankie Saenz, the guy that wrestled at Arizona State University, was a former D1 guy, has that old-time wrestly, grindy type style to be able to go out there, stop this guy's takedowns, keep this fight standing to where you want it, and pick apart the older fighter. That bodes well for you. When you look at Davy Grant, it's like that's exactly what you want to do, right? Davy Grant, 33 years old, kind of slowing down, but he has that old-timey, grindy style where he wants to get in there, drag you to the ground. Now, in the Martin Day fight, I mean, yeah, he did score 2 takedowns, but I felt like his wrestling didn't look good. His cardio didn't look good. And beyond that, it ended up being dragged into a striking battle. He got hurt. He got stung. He actually got knocked down by Martin Day, but, recovers, comes back, and ends up knocking him out, right? But then you go back to, say, the Manny Bermudez fight where he gets dropped as well. The fight's like 59 seconds, but he gets hurt in that one bad. And then now it's thinking, you know what? The Grigory Popov fight, one-dimensional guy with no grappling, you can grind him down. But these other guys that mostly grinders, mostly grapplers, Martin Day is a Taekwondo black belt, but he's 0-4 in the UFC. He's had virtually no success. Where did Martin Day look good in any of his fights if he had? Well, maybe when he hurt Davy Grant. Got hurt there. Manny Bermudez, no longer with the promotion, one-dimensional submission guy. Jeez, he looked like a world beater at that time he fought Davy Grant. Davy Grant's had these long lulls of like year off, 2 years off. He's had injuries. He's come back. He's not used to just be an absolute physical specimen for the weight class, but now, yeah, he's lost a lot of that muscle mass. If he's not able to take Jonathan Martinez down, he's going to get touched up with something. Could be the knee, could be anything. Those kind of flashy dynamic strikes, something's going to catch my boy Davy Grant. I'm a Davy Grant guy. But I don't think it's going to go well. But he is tough enough the last couple rounds. And then third round, plus 1,100. Beyond that, Martinez by TKO, plus 245. That's the direction that I was going with myself. Fun fight. Martinez is someone I like. 3-1's a little too much on the money line. So has he become parlay material for us this week? Probably. But then, yeah, a British wrestler in Davy Grant will somehow score multiple takedowns. Some stupid. You know how it goes. I think Martinez does catch this guy. Superior technique. Younger fighter, is just generally getting better every time out. And the last point being, yeah, the Ewell fight. It shows a loss on his record, but anybody that watched the fight probably, and I shouldn't say anybody, 2 of the 3 judges didn't. Like most people thought that Jonathan Martinez looked good. He didn't quite have the volume, but he landed the better strikes. And you're hurting Andre Ewell, a durable guy who's been in there with top fighters. Going out there against Davy Grant, it's like if you hurt him the same way, I don't see him recovering. So hurt this guy to the body, slow him down, and take him out.
I think this is the first time I've ever heard somebody say I'm a Davy Grant guy. So I think you're a special breed, Mr. Cody Saftic. You are a special breed.
I like him.
Tough guy. I believe he lost to Chris Holdsworth in the finale. Yeah. But it's been a while for sure. All right, let's move on to the next card. And I do want to remind you guys, we have over 200 people in the chat here. Make sure you guys hit that like. We're only at 59 likes. The numbers aren't adding up, people. Hit that like, show your boys some love, and let odds know that you guys want us back on a week-to-week basis. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. This one should be a fun one. I can't wait to hear your take on this one. This was probably one of the last fights I actually finished taping before hopping onto this stream. But Gavin Tucker versus Dan Ige, great fight. Got put together relatively short notice. I believe Dan Ige was supposed to fight somebody else, Ryan Hall, if I'm not mistaken. Minus 155 for Ige, plus 135 for Tucker. Now, Tucker, a little bit up there in age. He's 34 years old, but he's really coming into his own now, right? He has a little bit of a win streak going, and most notably, probably the toughest fight he's had to date outside of that Rick Glenn fight, Billy Quarantillo. Everybody expected Billy to go in there and replicate that Rick Glenn performance, and we saw Gavin Tucker go out there and exercise his demons. Shows great striking, great footwork, fluidity with the strikes, ability to change stances and strike at the same time. And not to mention, his takedown game looks amazing. The guy's going out there and clinching with these guys, tripping them from the tie clinch or even just from body locks. We're seeing a full game from Gavin Tucker nowadays. And his cardio looks good. I mean, he's landing takedowns late against Billy Q. And Billy Q is supposed to be that guy that's like pretty much the a rich man's version of Homer Simpson, where he's able to go out there, take a bit of a beating, and still put it on you in that third round and potentially take you out. But man, Gavin Tucker was putting it on him from minute 1 to minute 15, and he's been looking great. Even the fight before that, the Justin James fight, looks amazing in that fight as well. But my issue with Justin James is, or with Gavin Tucker, is I need him to distance himself a little bit from the Justin James fight. I need him to distance himself a little bit from the Rick Glenn fight and show that his durability is there. I want to see him actually take flush shots and continue chugging. He wasn't going to get that flush shot from Billy Q. Billy Q is not the most technically savvy guy, but with Dan Ige, we've seen him, heavy power in his hands. He's recorded a couple of knockdowns in his career. But I feel like Gavin Tucker will have him beat pretty much everywhere here except power. Ige, obviously, coming off the Calvin Kattar fight, first headlining spot, put together a couple good wins, the Edson Barboza fight, the Mirsad Bektic fight, and then even the Calvin Kattar fight. He steals a round. That second round has a solid round, but my only issue there is very low volume, and that's the concern here, where Gavin Tucker will probably be able to beat him on numbers as long as he doesn't get knocked out. Great jiu-jitsu from Dan Ige as well, but I think that Gavin Tucker will be able to nullify that. So I'd lean Tucker here. As long as he doesn't get knocked out, he should win a decision. So if we're talking about props here, I'm liking Gavin Tucker via decision, and we got plus 190 on that. That's not too bad of a line. How are you seeing this one?
I mean, I want to go Gavin Tucker. He's the pride of Canada at this point. We've got 3 legit fighters that are out of Canada right now, currently, right? Gavin Tucker, Hakeem Dawodu, and Jeremy Kennedy, who's not even in the UFC, is in Bellator. But like those are our guys. They're coincidentally all in a featherweight division as well. But yeah, it's like I want Gavin Tucker to get the win. I want him to move up. I want him to represent Canada. I mean, my girlfriend's favorite fighter. Right? We all love Gavin Tucker. Great guy. And also, they're good friends. Like Pat Carroll was one of his chief training partners and like cornerman and all that, right? So as much as I want to get behind Gavin Tucker, this is a tough fight. Could go either way. I just don't want to jump into the underdog spot, Gavin Tucker, jump on him. I like what he brings to the table. He does have the better striking. He's a better technical boxer than Dan Ige. I think that if this fight stays standing, he's going to have the better strikes. I just worry about, you mentioned durability, and just Dan Ige has got great cardio. He mixes in the wrestling with the strikes. Is his volume great? Maybe not, but I like what I see out of him. Even the Calvin Kattar fight, as you talked about, headlining spot, taking on Calvin Kattar, a top 5 guy who had the superior boxing. He loses the first round. The second round, I thought he won. I scored it for him. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, or 3, 4, 5, he gets, his ass kicked pretty soundly. But here's a young guy taking on a headlining spot, going 5 rounds, showing that cardio is not an issue. The Edson Barbosa fight, he's massively hurt in the first round. He rallies back second and third, makes it happen. Cardio's not a problem. He does have that wrestling background. He's a BJJ black belt, training out of Las Vegas. He's got just a plethora of good training partners to get him ready for the spot. And he was taking on Ryan Hall. So how do you get ready to take on Ryan Hall? You're going to shore up that grappling very heavily. Now you're taking on Gavin Tucker. That's a completely different matchup. Gavin Tucker is also a BJJ black belt, and his wrestling pretty solid. I think fairly solid. He's a physically strong guy, and he's got the striking advantage. Like, why can't he win? But I don't know why I get a bad gut feeling that Dan Ige is just going to pressure him up against the cage, try to take him down, try to probably successfully get a couple takedowns. As far as the striking goes, Gavin Tucker lands the better shots, but Ige pressures him forward, and ultimately this thing is going to decision. And I would think Ige squeaks at that decision plus 140. And similar to the Barbosa fight, most people scream robbery on that. Like, dude got melted in the first round. Could have been a 10-8, even though he fought back at the end of it. And second round's not particularly going his way, but the third round, he's in control. He keeps coming at you. Gavin Tucker's on short notice. So if his cardio, which is, historically been really good, if it's not quite up to snuff, it's going to be a problem. And I can't seem to shake that Rick Glenn fight out of my head. Like, that's as close as you've ever seen someone to dying in the octagon. Like, it's an absolutely vicious beating. He takes 2 years off afterwards. He returns to the UFC now in his mid-30s. And he just goes on a 3-fight tear, nice little wins. But all of those guys had a glaring hole in their game. Su Wong Choi can't really grapple. You just take this guy down. You have Billy Quarantillo. He's not physically strong enough. Justin James kind of has a durability issue that he exploited. What do you exploit on Ige? It's like his wrestling's good, his jiu-jitsu's good, his striking's good, his chin's good, his cardio's good. He's very good and well-rounded. There's nothing I'd like to see more than Gavin Tucker to go with that win. But I don't want to pick it based on like my heart. So my mind tells me Dan Ige by decision, which is plus 140. If I was going to bet a prop on that one, that's what I'd go. But this is fight of the night, man. This is going to be the best fight on the card. Super pumped up for this one. If I don't have money on it, it is what it you guys know me. I'll have some money on it. But just enjoy it from an entertainment perspective. But it's a good competitive fight. I'm just gonna go the other way. Let my country down big time, dude. Let my country. I picked Charles Jourdain, but I ain't gonna pick Gavin Tucker. What is wrong with me? But sadly, it is what it is.
I feel like I've criminally been underrating Dan Ige, so maybe that has a part to do with it. But the guy just continues to go out there and showcase, that he possibly deserves to be in that top 10, right? Beating Bektik, beating Barbosa, albeit a close fight, and then even stealing around from Kattar in a fight that a lot of people expected Kattar just run away with that. I believe he was a minus 300 or minus 350 going into that fight. So yeah, great fight. Really excited for it. I'd be, I wouldn't put serious money on Gavin Tucker here, but I don't mind that plus 190-ish on his decision prop. All right, let's move on to the co-main event here. We got another Canadian by way of Latvia, Misha Cirkunov going up against Ryan Spann. Very much looking forward to this fight. I'm a huge Misha Cirkunov fan. Obviously trained up at Grants a couple times, mainly Extreme Couture in Toronto, and now he's pretty much full-time down in Vegas training with Ray Sefo and Eryk Nixick, I believe the kid's name is, not the kid, the coach. And he's saying that he wants to go back to his roots, which is his grappling. He's a very high level grappler, solid jiu-jitsu, just as we saw in the Jimmy Crute fight, pulling out a Peruvian necktie. Not sure the last time we saw that in the cage, but very good fighter. His chin has obviously been the main question, right? Just like Gavin Tucker, we're always questionable about these guys' chins. But you get knocked out by Johnny Walker. You get knocked out by Volkan Oezdemir. You're getting ground and pounded by one Glover Teixeira, who probably has the best crushing top game, in the light heavyweight division, even at 40 or 42 years old. But then he goes out there and showcases like the Serkinov fight, the Krylov fight, that if he gets fights into the grappling realm, he could more than likely get the job done. And I think he can do that here against Ryan Spann, right? Ryan Spann leaves a really bad taste in my mouth, especially from that Sam Alvey fight, where he's just possibly could have lost that fight, gave away that third round, was getting bombed on by Sam Alvey in that fight. Not a good look at all. Then the Johnny Walker fight, it hurts Johnny Walker a couple times, shoots a desperation takedown and just eats a clean elbow to the side of the head and goes down like a sack of potatoes. So rough little stretch for him here. I believe it's a knockout or bust here for Ryan Spann. We got to hope that he can find that chin of Serkinov to get that knockout, and hope that Serkinov, is super chinny and can achieve that Johnny Walker and Volkan Oezdemir type of result. But I feel like we're going to see Misha get in on the takedown here. I feel like we're going to see him get this fight to the ground. And to me, I don't think Ryan Spann really has much off of his back. Yeah, he has a guillotine win over Devin Clark on his record, but let's go back and watch that back. It was Devin Clark desperation takedown, leaving his neck open there, and Ryan Spann just takes it home with him. So I don't think this fight is going that far. I'd be surprised if it even reaches round 3. So if you want to be safe on all fronts here, the under 1.5, I know your guy Paul is on it as well. Minus 140 is not too bad of a price tag, considering these guys don't go to a decision that often. Even Misha Serkinov, most of his fights finishing in the first round, whether it's him getting knocked out or him choking or knocking somebody else out. I think it's going to be him getting his hand raised this time around. I think he's technically way better than Ryan Spann pretty much everywhere except the power. That's where I think the difference is. And we're at light heavyweight, where power could absolutely trump all the skill in the world. Just watch Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you can outskill your opponent at 205, at heavyweight. That power, if your chin's not up to snuff, you're definitely going to get put out. So I do like Serkinov here. I think he gets the sub relatively quickly. Plus 155 for the sub, and I believe it's plus 250. For him to win in round 1. I think that's the way that I'm going about this fight. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way on this one. Again, I'm a traitor to my own country. I know. Misha Jourdain is the best grappler in division. If this is a grappling match, he absolutely tunes all these guys. Classically trained under Sam Zakula, got his black belt under him, and then bailed and went to Las Vegas. But since then, all of his fights, you see him, he's just a step above everybody, and he gets bailed out a lot by the grappling. And you see that in the Jimmy Crute fight. The Jimmy Crute fight, he gets on top of him. He looks like $1 million. He gets swept. Jimmy Crute ends up on top. Jimmy Crute starts bashing him. He's done. He looks done. And it's like, boom, he hits a sweep himself, jumps on the Peruvian necktie, makes it happen. And then what has he done? So he takes like 8 months off, apparently had a bunch of injuries. They book him to fight Ryan Spann in December of last year, and Misha Jourdain pulls out with an injury. So now he's been on the sidelines for 1.5 years. He hasn't fought since the Jimmy Crute fight. Again, it's a long layoff. He's 34 years old. When you mentioned go back to your roots, it's like roots, go back to your base. Like, this is what you do well. You're a grappler. Striking has not worked for him. And it's like, his striking has gotten way better, by the way. Like, I remember this guy from his debut. Like, he's a judo black belt. He was a former wrestler on the Canadian team, BJJ black belt, but he's like stiff, super rigid. Like, even in his debut, like Brian Stan's like, I wonder if he has a back. Brian Stan asked, he's like, I wonder if he has a back injury, because he doesn't move, right? You have seen him get better, but again, when he takes on these superior strikers, not only do they catch him and knock him out, but it's bad. Volkan Oezdemir absolutely stiffens him. Johnny Walker absolutely stiffens him. Both guys have a history of that. Glover Teixeira takes him down and absolutely mauls him. And yeah, I'm on the record saying Jourdain is the best grappler in division, but once Punchy got added to the mix, Glover on top is like a scary thing. And again, he couldn't overcome with that. Jimmy Crute's like 21 years old. Made a mistake. Sure, that's what young fighters are going to do. And Jimmy Crute is a young fighter who needs a few lessons, and Misha taught him one. But again, he's there to get caught. And Ryan Spann's got some glaring issues himself, let me tell you. But the guy can crack. He's a good striker. And, we have a lot of firsts on this podcast. And here's a first. I've never heard my boy Manpreet, a.k.a. Lock of the Night, question Fortis MMA. I've never heard I never seen that shit. So with Ryan Spann, it's like, dude, Safe Saud put a good game plan together, and that game plan would be Misha's extremely dangerous in the first round. He's going to try to come in there. He's going to try to get a hold of you. His wrestling's not super crisp. He's not shooting these double legs. He's not chain wrestling. What he likes to do is clinch up with you. It's more of a Greco-Roman style. Use that judo, toss you to the ground. Once he gets on top of you, you're screwed. But before he gets on top of you, every fight starts standing. Spann's going to have his opportunity to hit this guy and hurt this guy. And that's one thing I do like about Spann. He's a rangy guy. He packs some good power. You go back to even the little Nogueira fight. It's like, that uppercut straight through the middle. Can he go out there and catch Cherkinov and put him away? Yeah. Could Cherkinov take him down and finish him? Yeah. So the under 1.5 does look really good now, doesn't it? Spann's got a history of getting finished in some of these losses. Cherkinov's got a history of getting finished in his losses. Both guys have a path to victory that revolves around a first-round finish. And, I mean, let's be real here. Cherkinov's had 9 fights in the UFC, 7 of them inside of the first round. The last 6 of them inside of the first round. Come on, it's kind of writing itself. He's coming off a 1.5 year long absence. Do you think he wants to fight into the second and the third? No. He wants to finish it quick. That's going to oblige by Spann. He wants to finish it quick. And, again, when you're looking at props on this one, it's pretty crazy. So the Misha prop by submission, it's a huge plus money tag. But I ended up going with Spann. And the Spann by TKO was plus 220 or plus 240. Like, it was actually a pretty nice play itself. So whatever side you take, I think you're taking it inside the distance. And if you don't got a great lean on who you think's going to win, I think we can agree that under 1.5 looks good. Now, I've been burned by a couple under 1.5s this year, but, these guys are 205ers with a lot of finishing ability. So I think this one kind of does scream that route.
Even fight won't start round 2 is minus 105. That's not too shabby either.
Right.
All right, let's get to the main event. But before we do, I do want to remind you guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, show your boys some love, and that's the best way to do it. It's just a click. That's all you got to do. You guys are typing away in the chat. Just click that like button. That's all I'm asking. All right, let's get to the main event here. Short notice, Belal Muhammad stepping in exactly a month after he fought Diego Lima and beat him via decision. And he's going up against Leon Edwards, who hasn't seen action since July of 2019 when he headlined a San Antonio fight night against Rafael dos Anjos, coming away with the decision victory that night. Now, if people just want to look at Leon Edwards as a striker, they're sorely mistaken. The guy has a great overall MMA game. Obviously, his striking is a shining aspect, but I think his fight IQ is probably the best thing that we see from the guy. He knows when to take the fight to the ground, knows when to clinch up. Even if you want to go back and even look at the Albert Tumenov fight, having a little bit of struggles on the feet. Tumenov, highly skilled guy, having some success in the feet and outstriking Leon there. And Leon just goes to the takedowns over and over again. And then eventually in that third round sinks in that rear naked choke. But even recently, the Dos Anjos fight, you see him, clinching up with him, taking him down and doing some good work from on top. The guy has some pretty good top pressure and some good control time from there as well. The Cowboy Cerrone fight does the same thing, outstrikes him, does some good stuff, drops him, I believe, the last round or at least 2 rounds, but still comes out with the decision there. The Dos Anjos fight loses that 5th round, but still wins the first 4. Like, he is a very efficient fighter that can go out there and may not blow your hair back with like a fight of the night performance, but still goes out there and efficiently picks apart his opponent. Now, he might be a little bit low output for somebody's liking, especially compared to Belal Muhammad. I believe Belal has him pretty much doubled in all statistics in terms of volume and output, but it's just Leon dragging these guys into these fights that just make it a little bit more slower paced. You see Belal having his way with Diego Lima because he just doesn't respect the guy. The only thing he has to look out for is a calf kick. And then about halfway through that fight, you see Diego Lima start to suck wind. You see him start to, fold under the pressure of Belal Muhammad. And even Belal, has to change stances, but still has a lot of success walking him down, pushing him up against the cage and landing big strikes. Struggles to get Diego Lima down. So maybe that's a further accreditation to Diego Lima shoring up his takedown defense. But that is going to be some trouble here if he's going up against Leon Edwards and trying to just focus on getting the takedown. I feel like Belal will try to do that same, stay in your face and pressure him. But once he gets the respect, or once he starts giving respect to his opponent, like he did in the Jeff Neal fight, he's going to start to wilt a little bit and maybe not be as a high volume or a high output in this fight. I expect Leon to kind of slow this fight down, push him up against the cage, get a couple takedowns, pretty much efficiently beat him everywhere in this fight. It almost reminds me of that Sean Brady and Jake Matheus fight. I believe somebody pointed this out on Twitter, where their skills are pretty much the same, except Leon Edwards is just that much better than him in all those strengths and even the weaknesses. I think he's just much better than him in those spots. So I like Leon here. I think we see a clean performance from him, wins a 50-45, maybe drops a round at most. Belal Muhammad has gone 5 rounds in Titan FC before. He looked great all 5 rounds. This is a tough one to take on short notice, though. And not to mention, only 3 or 4 weeks after getting his legs chewed up. And he was complaining about it after too. He goes, man, my legs are messed up. Now you're talking about taking a short notice 5-round fight against a level of competition that you've just always been failing at when you reach it. Vicente Luque loses that fight. Jeff Neal loses that fight. The guys that he's been beating as of late are just not up to snuff when you're talking about Leon Edwards. You're going to compare Curtis Millender, Takashi Sato, Diego Lima to Leon Edwards? Hell no. The only concern here for Leon Edwards is the layoff. That's the only thing you can say about him. But there are other guys, Misha Serkinov coming off an extended layoff, Matheus Nicolau coming off an extended layoff. These guys are still able to go out there and have good performances. And I think that Leon Edwards, given where he's at with his age, where he's at with his career, the guy's going to go out there. And it's not like he's just been sitting there on his couch, eating Cheetos or anything like that. He's been getting ready for fights. If you guys remember, he was scheduled to fight Tyron Woodley before the whole COVID thing happened. He was the next event. And then the COVID thing happened and shut down all these events. Think about it. If you went out there and beat Tyron Woodley, you're talking about a guy fighting for the title next. Gilbert Burns did that during COVID. No, let's be honest. Gilbert Burns did that during COVID, beat Woodley, gets the title shot next. Colby Covington, if he hadn't already fought Kamaru Usman, probably would have got another title shot after that too. But, he was getting ready for the Woodley fight. Then he was getting ready for Khamzat 3 different times. So the guy's been in camp. The guy's been trained. The guy's been getting ready. And I just don't think that Belal is up there at this point in time. Too big of a step up, short notice. I'm not liking it from the Belal perspective. I think the line is, if anything, I think we're getting a little bit of value on Leon here. Outside of the inactivity, I truly expect him to be around that minus 350, minus 400 range. So to get him around that minus 250 range was a bit of a surprise to me. So I do like Leon here. I think he wins this fight via decision. How are you thinking about it?
Listen, man, I completely agree. I think that Leon Edwards has got all the skills in the world. Guy's extremely, I wouldn't say dangerous because of finishing ability, but like he's extremely technical. He's got good striking, good from the outside. He's got good pace, good pressure, good wrestling, good cardio, good chin, good durability, good ring IQ. He's got it all. The one thing is that because he's not viewed as the sexiest matchup, nobody wants to fight him. And as a result, that's where you get the inactivity. But this is the cold hard facts. You look at the division. He's already fought Kamaru Usman. He's won 8 straight since, but nobody wants to see him versus Kamaru Usman. And Usman's not looking to fight Leon Edwards again. Colby Covington is on record saying he doesn't want to fight him. Gilbert Burns doesn't want to fight him. George Masvidal very clearly does not want to fight him. He sucker punched him in the backstage, but has then turned down multiple opportunities to fight him. Stephen Thompson didn't really want to fight him. So he draws Tyron Woodley. Only Tyron Woodley doesn't want to fight him. So he bails out of the fight. The guy decides he's going to fight Khamzat Chimaev strictly by way of nobody wants to fight Chimaev. I might as well fight him. Nobody wants to fight me. Edwards could very easily be the number 3 guy in the world. I think Usman is the best. I think Colby Covington, in my opinion, is the second best guy. I don't see the rest of those guys being Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is legit. Now you look at body of work. Wow, geez, what has he got? A win over aged Rafael dos Anjos over 5. He's got a win over an aged Donald Cerrone over 5. He has a split decision win over Gunnar Nelson. And then the 3rd round, bro, he's tired and he's losing the 3rd round. He gets taken down. He's getting out-grappled. Like, not a very good look for him. So how could you be so confident that this guy's got all the skills? It's like you just haven't been able to see it because nobody wants to fight him. So him fighting Woodley would have been his coming out party. Either way, it's everybody's coming out party, right? Yeah. Nobody gave Burns any respect. Nobody gave Usman any respect. He was the underdog. No one gave Burns any respect. People were saying that he might catch Colby Covington. It's like not going to happen. And sure to God, there's going to be somebody that picks him over Vicente Luque. But like all it is your coming out party. Leon Edwards would have had that coming out party. No, he doesn't get that. So now he's fighting Chimaev 3 separate times. All you're working is your grappling. All you're working is on your cardio. All you're working is all these things. And even though the fight's fallen out, go check out Leon Edwards' Instagram. Go check out any of his social media. Oh my God. He's in career best shape. He's absolutely shredded. And the dude has got a massive chip on his shoulder. Nobody wants to fight him. He's in the prime of his career. He's like 29 years old. And he can't get a fight? Stupid. So now he's drawing Belal Muhammad. Well, you see how we're discussing like Leon Edwards is, in my opinion, number 3 guy in the world. If you don't like the guy, still hard to argue he's not a number 5 guy in the world. And now he just drew Belal Muhammad, who he's not in the top 10. He's a tough son of a bitch. He'll give you a go. He's a fan favorite. But he's not a top 10 guy. And I'll admit, I'm Titan, like you said, he used to fight 5 rounds back in Titans. Like, dude had cardio for days, never got tired. That was his weapon. Came to the UFC, and it's like, okay, well, you only got 3 rounds instead of 5. And he's a slow starter. He gives up those early rounds, but he can come back in rounds 2 and 3. When they've given him those steps up, those upper echelon guys, whether it was that debut against Jourdain, further down the line, he takes out Vicente Luque, further down the line, the Jeff Neals of the world. Like he's not coming out victorious in those fights. When they've given him the Diego Limas, when they've given him guys that are more or less clinging to a job, he goes out there and he does the damn thing. The Tim Means fight showed at range he is extremely hittable. He doesn't really move his head and his hands are really low, but he's tough and he's got a great chin and he'll grind forward. Tim Means is kind of notorious for not having great cardio, kind of wilting the longer a fight goes if he's not having his way. Belal can expose a guy like that. But against Leon Edwards, he's got volume, strictly volume. So how do you use just volume to be on Leon Edwards? Well, keep it a striking affair and just grind this guy. But I think Leon will be superior in the clinch. He's got excellent elbows in clinch, excellent knees in the clinch, loves to exit the clinch with a big strike, lands those eye-peeling shots. But the guy I don't want to compare him to a GSP. I don't want to compare him to a Khabib. He's not wrestling on that level. It's knowing how to just like control time, like knowing how to just like I'm pressing you into the cage more often than not. I'm making the advancements. It seems like he controls a lot of the time. And so ultimately he's a bit of a decision guy. We've seen him knock out Peter Sabata with 1 second left on the clock. Yeah. We've seen him hurt Paul Paulik, but he's not really much of a power guy. Even the Cerrone fight, he diced him with some nasty elbows. And Cerrone, at this stage, you could take him out. Just, again, didn't really have much there. So I think Belal Muhammad, tough, but this thing's banking in rounds. What I initially liked is I wanted to hit those over 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. I mean, that was an approach that fucking Jan had to blast him in the face with a knee. But if Peter Yan would have just kept the course, we were getting all of our rounds in, baby. And hopefully that decision prop, which never came to fruition. And then in the main event, same thing. It was just like, well, Jan is tough. This thing probably banks over 3, 4. But the over 3.5, 4.5 fight goes the distance are not good in this fight. I mean, they're all big. Everyone's on the same page. So you kind of do have to pick that winner. I'm going with Leon Edwards. The straight up minus 260 to minus 280 that you'll find on the money line, that's a very appropriate as far as I'm concerned. But when you look at his track record, and he's won a couple of these 5-round decisions, he's won a lot of fights by decision. He likes to control a lot of the pace, and knocking out Belal Muhammad's a problem. Submitting Belal Muhammad, good luck. It probably does go the way of decision. Leon Edwards by decision is what was it? Was it plus 120? Plus 120. It's a plus money play. That's your headliner. It seems like he's one of the more safer guys on the card. But it is MMA at the end of the day. But I think that even if Belal springs the upset by decision, it's just there's not enough meat on the bone for me to just take the fight straight out by decision.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a fight that's going to be banking rounds. But I think we're going to see Leon Edwards come out there and just try to make up for lost time and remind people like I am deserving of a title shot. And I think Dana even said that he's probably getting a title shot if he wins this fight. But how often can we truly believe what Dana says nowadays, right? Especially when you're talking about Leon Edwards.
Yeah. I feel like I want to say they owe him one, right? It's like when you sign to the UFC, you're owed a certain amount of fights per year. So now they got to get these guys to fight you. But you and I discussed this last week with Carlos fucking Goldberg. It's like he's giving him a list of options, right? Leon Edwards is a top 3 guy. He's a top 5 guy in the world. He doesn't get a list of options because it's like, oh yeah, I'll fight this guy. Well, yeah, he turned you down. I guess I'll fight that guy. No, he turned you down too. Well, who can I fight? Well, we'll find you somebody. But then they got nobody. You ask the champ. No, you're not selling him in an immediate title fight, and I already beat him, right? You try to sell Colby. Colby doesn't want it, and you can't force Colby into anything. He's the A side just because so many people hate him. He's bringing in the viewership. He doesn't want the fight. George Masvidal, well, he thinks he's Scarface. He's not taking the fight. Look at all these guys. They just don't want to fight him. The aged veterans, a loss knocks them right down. They don't want to fight him. The young up-and-comer, they don't benefit anything from. Even if you go out there and you beat this guy, it doesn't really do much for your stock. Oh, whatever, he beat Leon Edwards. I think it's funny on Twitter where everyone's just like, who? Like, it's fun. It's funny. Yeah. I'm in on that. It's funny to me. But, like, what's not funny is, like, this dude's skills, man. This guy's a scary individual. He's got everything you would want in a fighter. If you were to build that prototypical fighter, what you like, we talked about you know what? Essentially, he's a poor man's Kamaru Usman. He's a poor man's Kamaru. He's got great cardio. His wrestling's not on Usman's level. His cardio is a slight level, not on Usman's level. His striking's not quite on Usman's level. But the thing is, he does everything really well, and he's a decision guy. He's got the fight IQ. It's the fight IQ. It's the knowing that even if you get rocked, it's the knowing how can I slow this thing down? How can I bring this back into my domain? And unfortunately, the poor man's version of Usman, not likely to beat Kamaru Usman. But Leon Edwards is 29 years old, right? Kamaru Usman's now in his mid-30s, and his knees are absolutely shot to bit. So the young challenger's time will come. It just depends at what point do they meet again. If he wins this fight and he fights Usman right away, I don't like his chances. If he wins this one and was able to scrap up another couple fights, great. But because nobody wants to fight him, you have to rush him along. And how many guys win 8 fights in the UFC and it's like no one's even talking about them? Like it's almost disrespectful. And I think that the minus 260 money line is a reflection of that. Like, people just don't like him for whatever reason. I can't figure it out.
I thought it was supposed to be minus 400, to be honest. That's where I thought the line was going to drop at, or at least get bet to. But I think a lot of people are buying into that layoff narrative. They're a little bit high on Belal just because he fought a month ago and he looked great. You know what I mean? He just completely swept Diego Lima. But this is a far cry from Diego Lima going up against Leon Edwards.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I mean, if you matched up Leon Edwards against Tyron Woodley, he'd be a big favorite, right? If you matched Leon Edwards up against Colby Covington, he'd be a pretty sizable underdog, but one with a shot. Him versus Chimaev, I'm not sure what they had lined that up initially, but how do you get the number 4 ranked guy in the world against a guy that's not even in the top 15 as like a sizable ranked underdog? Like he's got great skills there. Him versus Gilbert Burns, he'd be the big favorite. And the biggest gift the UFC could give little Cody, get me back on track, get me back in the positive this year, is giving me Edwards versus George Masvidal, because Masvidal would have a reasonable line. Maybe might be even money. Maybe might even be a slight favorite. He's got no shot in that fight. No. Like Edwards would ragdoll, right? And so people don't see that because he doesn't have the same opportunities to those guys. He never ran and smashed a guy with a flying knee and went viral. So there's an assumption that he sucks. But it's like winning is winning. And the guys that win aren't exactly the most exciting, whether it be Kamaru, whether it be George, whether it be Khabib at various points in his career. Islam Makhachev might be the next champion, but if he submits you, great. If he doesn't, he's just going to grind on you. It might not be the prettiest thing going, but it's effective and it wins. Even the great strikers, right? Remember Lyoto Machida and how much they complained how boring he was? It's like, dude, he just waits. It's like, he's a winner. He's winning. Once you change your style. Now, if Leon comes out with a chip on his shoulder and says, I want to finish, I'm going to fight like Aljamain Sterling and throw a 600 punch combination in the first minute of the round. It's like, well, wouldn't be a good game plan. But if he fights to his capabilities and what he does best, it should be a good fight for him.
The last thing I'll say about the layoff, the one layoff that truly comes to mind when you're talking about guys of his skill level, Dominic Cruz, when he came back against Takeo Mizugaki and TJ Dillashaw, goes out there and has a great performance. I'm expecting a very pissed off Leon Edwards to show up this Saturday night to remind people who the fuck he is and who the fuck this guy was about to be if he had beaten or if he had gotten that Tyron Woodley fight and showed up that night and probably got a title shot after that. All right, let's get to our 3 best bets and then we'll get the hell out of here. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right, there we go. I'll kick things off as always. The first one that I got here is Mr. Hani Yahya to win this fight via submission plus 120. I love that line. I think he's going to make it look easy against Ray Rodriguez here. Get him down in that first round and lock up that submission, baby. Let's get that home. Next up, I like Jason Witt by submission as well too. Plus 550. That price tag was just jumping out at me. He can go out there and get absolutely melted by Semelsberger, who has some good pop on his shots, and we've seen Jason Witt hurt in the past, finished in the past via strikes as well. But plus 550 was too nice to pass up here for a guy who has 8 submission victories out of 18 wins, and not to mention over 2.5 times the amount of experience that Semelsberger has as well. So I like me some Jason Witt there. And then I got Misha Cirkunov round 1 plus 250. I think he takes Ryan Spann down with relative ease and locks up. Let's call it another Peruvian necktie. Let's just throw it out there for the sake of entertainment. Let's hope he goes out there and wraps up Ryan Spann in something that he's never been wrapped up in before. And hopefully Jason Witt and Misha Cirkunov's chin hold up and we see and we see these submissions pulled off. One last thing I will throw before I throw it over to you is I just for fun, I put together a submission parlay, since I believe all 3 of the guys are going to win by submission. If you take the 5 dimes submission lines on Cirkunov, Yahya, and Witt and parlay that shit together, you're getting plus 35.47. Am I sprinkling a little bit on that? You damn right I am. So let's see how that turns out for me. Those are my 3 bets. What do you got, Cody? Let's get you started.
You're gonna get pissed off on. Yahya goes out there, gets a submission. Witt goes out there, gets a submission. Misha Cirkunov gets the submission in round 2.
I'm just saying submission.
Yeah, period. Okay, because it's plus 150. Yeah. Misha straight up by submissions plus 150. Unfortunately, I did go the other way, but we will get at that currently. Starting off, we're going to go with Leon Edwards by decision, plus 120. As I mentioned, I think he's one of the safer guys on the card. He's got the back class, he's got the ranking, the time off. I don't think he took 3 years off. We were talking about Dominic Cruz. Like, that's a long layoff. This guy's been training. He's had opponents fall out, so he's been in camp the whole time. Something to prove. As long as those leg kicks don't add up too much or he's too aggressive, this thing should go the distance. Edwards should get that decision, plus 120. Moving on from that, got to go against Misha Turkinov in this one. We're going to go with Ryan Spann via KO or TKO, plus 240. It's the tale of two fights, you know what? And you could realistically bet Spann by TKO and Misha Turkinov by submission. Chances are you're cashing a plus money ticket either side, and you would walk away plus money out of it. But me and my boy Locke can agree all the time. This one, we're definitely going to be on opposite sides of it. But I just got a feeling that Spann catches him before this fight hits the ground. If it does hit the ground, hopefully Spann's just able to survive long enough that, even like Jimmy Crute, survive long enough to scramble. Instead of ground and pounding him, stand back up, let him come up. Now you'll see he's tired, you'll see he's slow, you'll see the shots are there. Spann can take this guy out. 240 was just too good of a price tag for me not to have a shot at that. And then moving on, we're going to go with another plus 245, slightly better than our Spann by KO, and that's Jonathan Martinez. It says via decision. That's an issue on my end. I had sent it over to you, said decision. It's just a TKO. That is the line. It's Martinez via TKOs plus 245. Again, sorry, that's my bad. When I looked at my notes earlier, I had written that, but it's the TKO prop. And again, I mean, if you want to chase that a plus 1100 that Locke and I spoke about, that's a solid way as well. You're going to go with that third round knockout, and that Davy Grant has been hurt before. He is a guy that can be finished. And with Martinez, he already shows 2 third-round knockouts in the UFC, both times with the knee. You see that he's young, he's wily, he's aggressive, he's got good cardio. I think he is going to put it on Davy Grant. Davy Grant also has been knocked down in 2 of his last 3 fights. He comes out and gets the win. So a lot of the time, if you're wiki capping it, or if you don't really want to tape study the whole fight and you just gloss over it, it's like you don't remember it. But the chin's there to be hit. So I think Martinez is live with that third-round TKO. And that would be a plus 245 prop. So, this is you tweeted out probably best, man. This is a sketchy card in terms of like putting some of these parlays together, some of these money lines. Some of them are blowing up. The guys that we like, it's already 3-1. The guys that we're iffy on, there's just not quite enough juice there, right? But these props, man, I think there's some solid plus money ones. And I think that attacking this card from a prop standpoint is probably the way to go this week.
Yeah, a lot of chalky lines like you're saying as well, but I do think the money to be made this weekend is on the props. Hopefully we can go out there and get some dubs. I know I've had some rough weeks. You've had some rough weeks. Last week I went 2-1 on my props. I believe you fell flat, but even the week before that, I believe I fell flat and you were the one coming through with the props. So hopefully both of us can come through. Other than that Cirkunov one, I want that Cirkunov round 1, and then you can just maybe go 2-1 this weekend. We'll see.
Well, that's why it's called propping you up, right? If I need some help, you propping my ass. If you need some help, I'll prop you, old buddy. But hopefully this week one of us ain't propping each other on the one play. Hopefully the other ones are good.
For sure. All right. That was a great episode, and we managed to do it under 2 hours. So that's a little bit of a record for us with 13 fights, but we appreciate all the 200 plus people that we had in the chat. If you haven't already, please do hit that like. We have surpassed the 100 like mark. We want to get it a little bit higher than that. So make sure you guys show us some love. As always, you guys can find us here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, propping you up. I believe we've got 2 more straight weekends of UFC events before we have 1 week off. And then Friday nights, obviously 9 p.m. Eastern, me, Cody, Guru, and Bleed are going to be breaking down the fights for you from a final weigh-in perspective at 9 p.m. Eastern. Cody, anything you want to say on the way out here?
No, you can catch me on Twitter at CJ Saftic. Obviously, we'll be back in action tomorrow night. So, thanks for joining. Again, I feel like the numbers are smaller this week because of Leon Edwards. Nobody likes the guy. I don't know. I can't explain it, but it's like they give you you always see this. It's called pay-per-view hangover. You get such a good pay-per-view. You get 3 title fights. You get prelims loaded. You get guys like Dominic Cruz just not even in a high position spot on the card. You go from that to this, and not quite as exciting for a lot of people, but there's some bangers on this card. There's some fun fights. We talked about Ige, Gavin Tucker, Misha Turkinov, Ryan Spann, the main event, of course. There's some good fights. There's some good spots. You and I were purists. We love the sport. We love the game. And if you're one of the 200 people that tuned in tonight, you're a hardcore too. So thanks for joining us. Much respect, all the respect in the world. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.
For sure. All right. Join us tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Me, Cody, Guru, and Bleed are going to break down the fights for you one last time. Once again, 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, right here on Odds HQ. Like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.